Hello guys, this is Dark Fox Sage 2 and we are back with our new fanfic, which is What If Naruto and Sakura Were the Only Shinobi Left Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and please subscribe to the channel. It motivates me to upload more fanfic like these for you all. Now let's start the fanfiction. The trees flew past at the quick pace the shinobi said in urgency. Her muscles ached and her breath came in ragged gasps, as she pushed herself forward to keep up with Jiraiya bearing the failing Naruto. The moon shone overhead, granting a faint light to navigate by. No time to stop, must get to Tsunade-sama. They had been moving quickly for hours, Sakura pushing past her limit, even factoring the soldier pill. She felt lightheaded, her legs trembling with each jump from a branch. Jiraiya stopped on a nearby trunk, turning toward her with a stern expression. Sakura, don't push yourself so hard, you can rest here. I can. She sucked in a deep breath, and jumped forward. Wavering on her legs, she looked to the blonde's limp form over the sage's shoulder. Tightening her fists, she coughed out. No, I'm going and I don't need help. Naruto always pushes past his limits, I won't slow him down anymore. The Sannin looked at her for a moment, then smiled, signaling them to move on. An hour after the sunrise, the large town where Tsunade was staying appeared on the horizon. Hang on, Naruto, you promised, I won't be a burden anymore. Another dull morning as the blonde checked her case, sifting through the many debt slips. Well, I should have used up about all of my bad luck now. She glanced at the ugly, but bulging frog wallet. And at least there's one bet I won. Tsunade smiled and grabbed the frog, filching through its contents. He had quite the amount. This should give me a good start on earning back my losses. I was afraid I'd have had to take another loan. Tsunade-sama, it's only been 4 days since you made the bet. She scoffed, rolling her eyes toward the ever so proper Shizune. Meh, it's as good as mine. Don't tell me you believe that brat can do it. Shizune's eyes were downcast. Why did you make that bet? And your necklace? Hasn't he gone through enough with Konoha? Tsunade stared forward. That brat, saying the same damn things. He even looks alike. To save his life. Death is the only end for those who dream to be Hokage. Tsunade-sama, Shizune muttered, when the door swung open. What is the meaning of this, Jiraiya? Her teammate staggered in, carrying the brat in question, the pink-haired girl bolting behind, gasping for air, and collapsing on the floor. Shizune stammered, and bent over the girl, helping her up and inspecting. Jiraiya, what happened? Naruto, a sound medic nin, attacked at his heart. He's failing. His tenant and his will are all that's keeping him alive. He laid the boy out on the bed and she stared at his still face, his chest rising erratically in shallow broken breaths. No, not again. Her hands trembled as she reached over. Tsunade, please. She hesitated, flashbacks and memories of Nawaki and Dan, their dead faces staring up at her. Tsunade-sama, please, please, save Naruto. He's all I have. He protected me. He mastered the Rasengan. We don't care about the bed, but please save him. Sakura choked out between heavy breaths, collapsing back to her knees, tears stinging at her eyes. He mastered the Rasengan in so short a time. This kid. She stared at him. Tsunade-sama, don't let his dreams die. She wavered, watching Sakura break down into sobs, something inside her moving. The blonde Sannin swallowed, and gathered chakra in her hands. One more time, I'll trust their dreams to you, Naruto. Then the legendary medic went to work in saving the boy. Minutes later, she wiped the sweat from her brow, sitting up. He's okay now. He just needs rest. He's going to make it. Sakura instantly brightened, sitting up. Thank you. She threw her arms over the blonde genin laying against his chest. Thank you so much. Tsunade nodded slowly and gave the girl a soft smile, as Sakura drifted to sleep, overcome by the exhaustion. She whipped around and growled at Jiraiya. Now you. How could you let them get in that condition? Why was she so tired? Were you just going to let her run herself to death? She rolled up her sleeve, stalking toward her teammate. Tsunade, wait, it wasn't like that. He backed against the wall, putting his hands up in front of him defensively. We were inspecting in different areas, Naruto got in over his head. That I'll take responsibility for. But for Sakura, she did it to prove herself strong enough. The girl doesn't want to live in his shadow, she wouldn't take help or arrest. You know how proud a kunoichi of Konoha can be. Both of them have the will of fire. The blonde medic looked back to the slumbering kids, and clicked her tongue. Those kids, Naruto used the Rasengan. The white-haired man stared out the window. I didn't witness it, but Sakura did. At this point, I'd believe anything from this brat. The first real frog he summoned was Gamabunta himself, he's quite the kid. You're going to follow your word on the bet. She bit her lip, a Hokage. At least he's got the guts for it. Jiraiya grinned and chuckled. Let's go get some sake. His back ached, and it felt like a weight was pressed on his chest. He opened his eyes slowly, not having the strength to sit up. Something stringy and pink blocked his sight. Sakura-chan, she's asleep. On me. We made it. What happened to Kabuto in the town? His eyes scanned the room and he turned his head. Another hotel room. Not wanting to disturb his crush, he stayed still, content to be her pillow for the time being. He laid back thinking. Kabuto a traitor, and he had a bag of leaf protectors, the others are in danger. We have to find them and stop the sound. He lay still for minutes, running over what had happened. I have to get stronger. You're awake now, brat. He turned his head to the voice. So I heard you use the Rasengan. The Rasengan? Oh yeah, I did. I won the bet. He grinned widely. You bet Tsunade Bakken, I win the bet. He mumbled, glancing at the pink head of hair on his chest. But is it okay if I prove it later? What happened by Ow. He yelped at the blue crystal, striking him in the face. Don't call me Bakken. She sighed and flopped onto a chair. Meh, I wouldn't have believed it if you said it, but I think I can trust Sakura. He nodded. I see. Okay. Wait, what do you mean you wouldn't have trusted me? He shouted, jerking up, causing Sakura to stir, who promptly planted a fist in his face. You're too loud. She yawned out, then blinked, looking around, then frowned at the dazed blonde. Oh, sorry Naruto. Tsunade only cackled at the sight. Oh, don't apologize to him, he had it coming, I think. Sakura pushed herself up, and straightened her disheveled hair with a blush. She then looked straight toward the Sannin, clearing her voice. Tsunade-sama, would you take me as your apprentice? I am willing to go through anything. Naruto blinked, and looked questioningly at Sakura, seeing the determination of her expression. Sakura-chan wants to train under Bakken. No, I'm not interested in babysitting. He watched Sakura's resolve get crushed into a crestfallen expression, and she turned away. He growled out, pushing himself up. Tsunade Bakken. Sakura-chan would be perfect. Please take her. Naruto, it's okay, Tsunade-sama has her reasons, I'm sure. Sakura turned to him and tried to give a reassuring smile, which failed miserably. I won't let Sakura-chan be sad. Tsunade Bakken, take the necklace back. Let winning the bet take her as your apprentice instead. It's valuable, right? He watched the blonde stare at him unblinkingly. You can keep the money too. Naruto. It's okay, really. Sakura pulled on his shirt. Tsunade stood up and walked to the door, and turned around. Sakura can be my apprentice. But it won't be easy. I'll work you hard. Sakura brightened and stammered. And Naruto, it's your necklace on one condition. You become a good man and do the Hokages proud. The blonde smiled, and shut the door on the two. His mind worked out what she had said, then he exclaimed. That's great, Sakura-chan, she'll train you. Naruto beamed to his friend. Naruto, thank you. She glomped on him in a tight hug. I'm sorry I've been a burden, he tried to interrupt, but she shushed him. Don't say I haven't. I know you believe in me, and now I'll be worthy of that. It may take some time, but this is my promise to you. I don't want to just watch your back. He returned the embrace. Sakura-chan, I know you'll become strong. And I'll get stronger myself. Believe it. I won't ever doubt you again. She whispered under her breath, laying against him. Naruto, I misjudged you for so long, you always were the strongest. Sakura-chan. He heard a slight snore, and looked down. I guess she was really tired. He blushed, pushing his fingers together. This is happening a lot now, being Sakura-chan's pillow. He thought with a grin, and laid back to rest himself after fastening the necklace around his neck. Naruto awoke to find the room empty. His growling stomach told him it was time to search for food. His eyes passed over a black and orange jumpsuit hanging in the corner with a small note for his name. He quickly ran over. Wow, did Sakura-chan or Ero-sennin get this? He put it on with a wide grin, tired of the plain clothes he wore and relieved of the new garb. Orange just felt right. Humph, wearing orange again already. At least that is mostly black. He turned around to see Jiraiya sitting back in the window sill. Ero-sennin, did you get me this? He shook his head. Hell no, Shizune bothered Sakura about your favorite color and went and found it. Tsunade's out corrupting your little friend right now. I wouldn't be surprised if she develops a gambling problem. Whose bright idea was it to train under Tsunade anyway? Naruto had the sudden image of a drunken busty Sakura whining about losing all her money gambling and had the uncontrollable urge to shiver. Be strong, Sakura-chan. He frowned, remembering the fight with Kabuto. Hey Ero-sennin, we fought a sound spy, named Kabuto. And he dumped a bag filled with leaf protectors. He said it was a trap, and our people are dying in these traps. Ero-sennin, I want to stop this. And I want to become stronger. The large man set his hand on his shoulder. A good point, Naruto. I'll be on the lookout for all leads. I can supervise some of your training while we search. Naruto, you realize that you may be seeing less of Sakura while she is learning from Tsunade, right? He nodded slowly. Sakura-chan's strong and wants to get stronger too. And this will be safer for her, if we go up against strong guys like Kabuto. Then when she thinks she's ready we can be a team again. His stomach growling ruined his serious speech. And can we go eat? After a pleasing meal, Naruto wandered the town, killing the afternoon before returning to the room. He let out a loud yawn, his usual boundless energy depleted from his recent injury, and settled down for a nap. He woke up with a start at the sound of his name. His eyes locked on his crush, thrashing in the throes of what he figured was another nightmare. Sakura-chan, wake up. Naruto, she mumbled, opening her eyes, her face flushed with sweat. You were having another nightmare. She nodded slowly, and he sat next to her. She let out a weary sigh and slumped against his shoulder. Sorry, Naruto, what's the most scared you've ever been? Other than the wave mission. He thought for a second, remembering the night they discovered Konoha. When you passed out at the arena, you were feverish, and the rain wouldn't stop. I was so worried and afraid I'd lose you then. Her lips quivered, and she poked him. You won't get rid of me that easy. She jested, but with little spirit. Sighing again, what about something, not involving me? His face scrunched in thought. Well, when Ero-sennin threw me off the cliff as part of the training, I thought I was going to die. That was pretty scary. He shrugged sheepishly. Sakura nodded pensively, then growled, he did what? Why would he toss you off a cliff? He meant well. He was teaching me to use the Kyuubi chakra, and use the summon jutsu. Summon jutsu? You can summon like Orochimaru? She said excitedly. Yep. The frog boss helped me thrash Gaara. Want me to summon something? You summon frogs? Her face twisted into a repulsed look. Ew. No, that's okay, I believe you. She laughed a moment. Thanks, Naruto. I always feel better just by talking to you. Sakura-chan, no problem. He gave her his signature grin. Sakura-chan, Ero-sennin and I will be going to find our friends, and stop the sound. Is your training going alright? You're leaving? A frightened look crossed her face. He grabbed her hand. I have to, but I promise I won't stay gone long. I'll make sure Ero-sennin lets me come back every few days or something. I promise I'll always return, and I keep my promises. She nodded and after a moment smiled. I can live with that. And if you don't, I'll never forgive you. She poked at him again. Let's get back to sleep. Feeling hearty and refreshed, the Kyuubi vessel woke alone in the mid-morning and began his morning routine. Sakura-chan must have to start training early. I hope she didn't have nightmares again. Naruto. He cursed and wheeled around. I need to get better at sensing so they stop sneaking up on me. Here. He tossed a large fruit which he caught. I found a lead. There seems to have been some smoke and damage sighted not far off a road to the east of here. While it could have been caused by a forest fire, seeing things as they are, perhaps we should check it out. Naruto took a large bite out of the fruit and nodded. What I would do for some Ichiraku right now. He thought sadly. Right. When do we go Aro Sennin? Now. Naruto nodded, and grabbed his kunai pouch, fastening it securely to his leg. He went to the window and followed his perverted sensei in a jump to the street. Oi, Naruto. Morning. He turned to the voice with a smile. Morning, Sakura-chan. She looked past him to the Sannin, then frowned. You're leaving already? Just checking out some damage in the forest. Aro Sennin doesn't think it'll take long. I'll be back. Work hard, Sakura-chan. She nodded. Right, do your best, Naruto. He smiled widely, giving her a thumbs up, and turned running to catch up to his sensei leaving the town. Sakura let out a weary sigh, reflecting over what her life would consist of in the imminent future. The blonde Sannin had made it clear that she would be stuck reading for quite a while until she had a firm grasp of all the material she deemed necessary. Then the legendary medic said she would go through special physical conditioning every morning starting next week. When her readings were completed, they would be followed by long hours of medical jutsu practice. All the while the blonde herself would be gambling and drinking. She shuddered, wondering what the physical conditioning Tsunade had meant. The sadistic bat had an evil glint in her eye and the audacity to put special quote marks. Worse, the friendly and bubbly Shizune shivered in terror at the remark. Sakura had a feeling it would not be something to look forward to. And so she found herself headed toward a library Tsunade had specifically directed her toward. Apparently she had a friend at the establishment with a special section reserved for many of her own medical books she had not left at Konoha. Her master had suggested that her training would begin by reading volume after volume, learning the many theories, practices of medical biology. It was boring work, but Sakura was thankful for it. It would both keep her busy, and she absorbed textbook material like a sponge, always having a knack for reading knowledge. Her higher spirit was short-lived, when the librarian directed her to a back storeroom belonging to Tsunade. Her eyes widened, seeing the high shelf brimming with thick, dusty volumes. She swallowed. Her master wanted her to read all that. Inner Sakura stared dumbly ahead, groaning in defeated frustration. I asked for this. I have to work hard for Naruto. Sighing, she grabbed a stack of the thick books, coughing at the dust, and gathering them up headed back to their room to dive into reading. Be on the lookout for any signs of damage to the forest. The account I heard claimed its small traces were visible from the road in this region. Naruto nodded at the instructions, enthusiastically scanning the brush for unseen clues. They had run for the better part of the afternoon. The searching in random directions was a welcome change to the constant running and jumping. Naruto searched the left side of the public road while Jiraiya elected for the right. He summoned a set of clones to fan out, covering more ground. Minutes had passed where the Naruto search force continued to find nothing of interest. He grumbled, dispelling the clones, returning to the road and continuing to follow its span further. Is that what I'm looking for? Ahead lay a strange pattern of broken trees, their trunks shattered and charred, splayed in different directions. It doesn't look natural. There must have been a fight here. He went further. The damage to the forest only became worse. Small craters, burned brush, and tipped trees marked sort of a path of destruction. What happened here? He continued to follow the trail of carnage, coming to a circular clearing. An unnatural clearing. It looked as if Sasuke had done his fire jutsu in overdrive, incinerating everything in a 10-yard radius circle. Naruto began to wonder just what he should be looking for. Clues to who was fighting. Where they ran to. Bodies. He paled, his eyes scanning the area locking on a charred skeleton. He looked further. More charred corpses. How did I miss all this? His stomach churned, memories of seeing bubbling in the back of his mind Konoha. This was a site of a massacre. Searching the area carefully, he thought he heard a pained groan. He listened closely, holding still, hearing it again. Someone is alive here. Searching carefully, he looked around the broken trees. He straightened, finally spotting a tattered forehead protector attached to a navy blue bandana. Approaching the object, he picked it up carefully, turning it over in his hand. A leaf symbol. Naruto glanced to the nearby trunk of a tree, hearing a raspy breathing. With mingled worry and hope, he approached the trunk. Is someone there? He eyed the figure, breathing heavily in dark blue ragged sweater and pants covered in rips and cuts. A pair of broken shades rested on his chest and his head was topped with a short crop of brown hair. There was something familiar about the man, the closet pervert. The man stirred, opening his eyes and looking toward him. Naruto-kun, you're alive. Thank goodness. Iruka will be relieved, I'm sure. Naruto brightened, and knelt toward him. Iruka-sensei's alive. And are you alright? You look terrible. The man hacked into his hand, leaning back against the tree with a raspy laugh. I've felt better. No, I've been left for dead. My right leg, I can't move it. I've been here for 2 days, maybe more. It's been a long hell. The man grimaced, and Naruto's eyes went to his leg and he had the urge to retch at the sight. He didn't know much about injuries, but he could only guess that was a nasty infection. Naruto-kun, I wanted to apologize to you for our first meeting. I didn't acknowledge you, as a shinobi of Konoha, but you proved me wrong. You were always destined to be an excellent ninja. Hey, don't talk like that, Ebisu-sensei. I'm with Ero Sennin, I'll send a clone to get him now. He handed the injured man the bandana, after summoning several Kage Bunshin to search for the Sannin. Jiraiya-sama is alright. That's great news, someone is still alive that can face up to Orochimaru. I was worried he didn't escape the fight. He hacked into his hand, laying back. Hey, rest some, and here. Naruto tossed him his canteen of water. You were with Iruka-sensei. Where did he go? The man took a large drink, spilling a few drops on his face and with a rasp laid back against the tree. Between coughs he began to unfold his tale. It was terrible. When the alarm sounded in the town, I entered the Hokage mountain, to ensure the safety of the honorable grandson and the other students and villagers. Anko and Iruka among other instructors were present, and we should have been safe. But Orochimaru, he had known our safety plans. The entire mountain was lined with explosive tags. So many died in the blast. We fought hard to protect the surviving students and villagers. Many sand and sound shinobi had us surrounded. Thankfully, our Anbu Black Ops arrived in force at the time, and with their sacrifice we were able to escape for the most part. The Junin glanced down solemnly. Naruto could see the pain on his face was not just physical. Naruto frowned, having seen his own fair share of horrors recently. What happened here? Naruto nodded to the broken forest. Ebisu shivered. The three of us were escorting the villagers and children to the border of Fire Country, to find some other town to take haven in and regroup. But our entire trip we were being trailed by a team of tracker sound nin. This is where they caught up to us. They showed no mercy, and attacked the villagers first. I stayed back with a few others and engaged the many, using all I had so that the others could save who they may. My last jutsus caught many in the blast, but I received too many wounds to move. I pray for the others' safety. I've done all I can. Naruto glanced back to the destruction in the clearing. The closet pervert, he really was a strong shinobi. Ebisu. Damn it, how bad is it? Jiraiya appeared next to them. My leg is badly infected. I don't know if I can ever recover from these injuries. He coughed. Here, take this for now. We'll bring you to Tsunade. If anyone can do anything, it'll be her. Are there any others here? He handed the wounded Junin a soldier pill. He bit into it, and rasped. No, just me. Tsunade-sama is in contact too. That's great. I knew we could depend on you, Jiraiya-sama. I just wish the battle would have gone differently. Uruka and Anko and the others would have changed their direction by now. We had only spoken briefly on our run. We were heading past the border to the far north. Grass or waterfall perhaps. You were pursued and this is where you made your stand. You did well, Ebisu. They should be safe for now. We'll find them later. Ebisu, I'm sorry. The Sannin hit some pressure points, knocking the Junin out. Naruto gasped. What did you do that for, Arrow Sennin? Naruto, relax. He's hurt bad, and this is the most painless way to get him moved. Come. His wounds have been untreated for a while. A weaker man would have succumbed a long time ago. The white-haired man patted the blonde, and pulled out a sealing scroll, unsealing a large blanket. Naruto, make some clones, we'll use this as a stretcher. The genin complied, bearing the stretcher up with 4 clones. Naruto, we must hurry. His wounds are grave. His life could be in danger if we wait much longer. He's in much more pain than he is letting on. Naruto swallowed and nodded, and the two departed. The two left bearing the injured teacher, and headed back to their friends in the city. Be strong, closet pervert. Uruka-sensei is alive, that's great. And Konohamaru and the others, they should be safe with him. And that scary examiner lady. Sakura groaned, finishing another chapter of the first of many volumes. She rested her head on the desk, her mind fried from the many hours of reading the highbrow technical writing and perusing the many diagrams. The content was simple enough, and she could claim with confidence she retained enough of the important information to please her master. Nevertheless, the straight reading was mentally exhausting, and she found herself looking forward to the possible diversity the dreaded physical conditioning would bring. A soft rap sounded on the door and she frowned. Tsunade-sama said she'd be out until later. She approached the door slowly, remembering the last time Naruto opened the door. Sakura-chan, are you in there? Her worry melted away, and she bolted opening the door. Naruto. What? Who's this? She gasped, standing back as 4 Naruto clones bearing a blue-clad injured man into the room, setting him on the spacious floor. The clones fulfilled their purpose and poofed into clouds of smoke. Jiraiya appeared in front of her. How does he do that? Sakura, where's Tsunade? Ebisu has a grave infection on his right leg. She glanced over at the sleeping man and grimaced at the wound. An untreated infection like that, she shivered. If her hunch was correct, there was only one way to treat it once it reached that stage. Tsunade-sama should be in the bar downstairs. Naruto grumbled something about drinking old ladies, while Jiraiya vanished to fetch his teammate. Sakura-chan, Ebisu-sensei says Uruka-sensei and some of the students should still be alive. And that scary examiner woman. Sakura nodded slowly. So this is Ebisu. Must be a Junin Naruto knows. I'm glad Uruka is okay, I know he's important to Naruto. Naruto, that's great. Will you and Jiraiya go find them next? She offered him a small smile. I don't know, I hope we can, but I also want to get back against the bastards who did all this. His voice hardened into a low growl. Then the elder Sannins returned Shizune in tow. Naruto, move. Sakura, watch, this will be good for you to see. She nodded slowly, aware of Naruto fidgeting behind her. The rosette peered as her master cut away the cloth around the Junin's leg, while Shizune began tending to the many smaller cuts and bruises. Sakura felt bile rise in her throat seeing the horrid wound, but swallowed it, forcing herself to look. Even Tsunade winced and frowned, and began to work. After a long silence, she shook her head, frowning. It'll have to be amputated for him to live. She heard what sounded like Naruto slamming his fist into the ground behind her. Sakura winced at the operation, feeling lightheaded when it was finally completed. She looked toward Naruto, his sapphire eyes reflecting a deep sadness. Naruto, he'll live. Is he close to you? Naruto shook his head. I didn't know him that well, but he has acknowledged me now, and that makes him one of my precious people. How many others are out there hurt and dying in the wilderness? How many others are already dead, damn it. He punched the ground, his knuckles starting to bleed. She placed her hands on his shoulders, and shook gently. Naruto. Stop it. You'll save everyone you can. I know you will. Just be glad you saved Ebisu-san, and keep looking for others. He nodded slowly, shaking his hand out. Thanks Sakura-chan, others are alive, I'll protect everyone I can. Naruto. She could only frown at her friend, thinking of some way to calm him. Ero Sennin. Let's go out, we have to hurry and find more, they could be dying, like the closet pervert. Not yet Naruto. I know how you feel, but I have to speak to Ebisu. Also go where? I'm sorry Naruto, but just, go blow some energy training or something right now. Naru, Sakura called after the grumbling blonde who left slamming the door behind him. She frowned further and deflated, sitting on a small chair. What can I do for him now? Jiraiya-sama. She wheeled around to the now conscious amputee. What happened? The Sannin sighed and sat down in a chair pouring 2 glasses of sake handing one to the man. Ebisu, I'm sorry. You're going to be alright but, your leg had to be amputated. She watched the man frown and nod thoughtfully. A small price to pay for the safety of the others. Others paid much more. He stared forward in a long silence. I suppose this means I will retire as an active shinobi. But Jiraiya-sama, I would like to help in any way I can, as a contact or teacher. The Sannin nodded. Yes, that may be best for now. If we can get contacts spread out and start reaching the others, that would be a good long-term plan. I have to finish this reading, so I can help others like Tsunade Shisho when Naruto finds them. She took the next of the volumes and began to read while listening to the elder ninjas speak about the contact information. Stalking the streets, Naruto stormed toward the side of town where the nin had attacked him and Sakura on their first day of the city. Blow some energy. I'll do that alright. His mind churned on his next big prank. Reaching near the shop, he formed several cage bunshin. He directed them to hide concealed in the alley while one of his clones hanged into an older-looking ninja of Konoha, complete with the vest and forehead protector. He lay quiet in waiting, while the Konoha bunshin walked into the weapon shop, and then sauntered down each of the main streets, before heading toward the alley. He smiled smugly at the sight of 3 thugs gathering in the streets nearby. What idiots, didn't look, underneath. He thought smugly with a Kakashi-esque impression. He fell upon the 3 like a hammer on an anvil, his clones slamming them to the ground, and whipping kunai at them. A short melee later, a relatively unmarred Naruto stood over the fallen sound thugs. That felt good, but I'm not done yet. Attempting the tactic again, Naruto was disappointed when no one took the bait. He sighed, and figured he'd take his aggressions out on himself in a massive clone brawl in the yards behind the inn. Dusk descended over the city. Naruto still isn't back, it's been a long time since I've seen him so angry. She closed the book. I better find him before he does something stupid. Jumping out the window, Sakura dropped down to the road. Now where did he go? She shivered at the cool air, and decided to check the nearby area, not wanting to wander the streets alone in the dark unless she had to. She let out a relieved breath, hearing a loud clamor that could only be Naruto at this time of evening. She hopped the fence in the direction the noise was coming from, and scanned the area. What the hell does he think he's doing? Inner Sakura growled, punching forward. I'm gonna smash him if he doesn't stop hurting himself, Shanaru. Naruto. The surprised bruised blonde engaged in combat with dozens of copies of himself whipped around to the sound of her voice, managing to land several blows on himself. With a soft pained groan, his clones rapidly dispelled and he fell to his knees out of breath. Sakura-chan, what's up? She ran to his side and sighed at the sight. Really Naruto, you have an abusive personality. Just what were you accomplishing fighting with yourself like that? Look at you, you're covered in bruises. She chided him, running her hands up a swollen cheek. He winced and smiled shyly. I was just practicing my cage bunshin. Geez, don't beat yourself up. She bonked his head lightly. Hey Naruto, if you need to talk or anything. I know you were upset earlier. I just hate this feeling of helplessness. She nodded. Me too, But we'll get through this together. They shared silent reassuring smile. Hey Naruto, something I always wondered, how does using Kage Bunshin feel? His face scrunched up in his patented Naruto thinking expression. Feel like? Well, obviously you can control the clones, but like, do you feel what they feel? Know what they know? She elaborated. He pursed his lips. Well, no, I don't really feel or know what they know, but when one is cancelled, I know what it did and how it was dispelled, like an extra memory. Sakura stared ahead for a second thinking. Naruto, doesn't that mean you could train faster with memory stuff by using hundreds of clones? Blinking, Naruto stared at her dumbly. Train faster? Clones? Sakura-chan, you're a genius. He jumped to his feet like an eager child, causing her to smile. But, if that's true, why didn't Kakashi-sensei or anyone tell me that? She shook her head. I don't know, you're right. That is kind of strange. Perhaps you should ask Jiraiya-sama. Right. The two walked back toward the inn. Hey Sakura-chan, have you been having those nightmares lately? She looked into his deep blue eyes full of concern and smiled. No, your promise has been enough, I trust your Nindo. I heard Jiraiya-sama talking earlier. He plans to take you searching again tomorrow. Jumping up to the window, Naruto thought before replying. I'll ask him then about the Kage Bunshin. His eyes trailed over to the stack of books and he paled. That's your training. Sakura giggled and punched at his shoulder. Yay, for now. Though Tsunade says I start some physical conditioning in the morning in another 2 days, Naruto. Be careful out there. For Ebisu-san to be hurt like that, he nodded slowly. Now get some rest, and I don't want to see you beating yourself up again. Yes, Sakura-chan. The following morning, Sakura saw Naruto off into a foggy, cool morning. Jiraiya unfortunately had not found any possible leads, but suggested they may as well make a journey while he had Naruto work on his fundamental movements. Ero Sennin. He earned another sigh from the frog hermit. I was talking to Sakura-chan, and she wondered about using Kage Bunshin to train faster. Is that possible? The Sannin paused briefly in his pace. Your Sakura is quite astute. Yes, Kage Bunshin can be used to practice for exponential growth. The only side effect I'm aware of is some mental strain, but I'm sure you have enough of that already. But Ero Sennin, if you knew that, why didn't you or anyone tell me sooner? Naruto stomped and stared down his sensei. Well, for my part, I didn't even think of that. While it's true that many Junins from Konoha know that technique, you are perhaps its youngest user ever. Also, few ninja can match your supply of chakra and your natural disposition to the technique. I don't think it has ever come up for someone your age using that technique in the manner you are able to. Remember, it is a kinjutsu for a reason. The Toad Sage answered thoughtfully, satisfying the blonde. Naruto, for now your greatest weakness lies in the unnecessary movements of all of your attacks. You have good strategy and techniques at your disposal, but you have much to improve physically. He thought for a moment. How about you stay here for a bit, and focus fighting against many clones? Build up your combat reflexes, and then later work on your speed. Right, I'll work hard. The Sannin nodded, and pulled out some parchments and began writing while Naruto proceeded to do just what Sakura had nagged him not to do. What Sakura-chan doesn't know, won't hurt me. She closed herself in the quiet room she had lived in for a while now. Ebisu-san left the day I started this training. I wonder if he is doing okay. The ex-Junin had procured a pair of crutches and went toward the villages closer to Konoha to find who he may and direct them toward Jiraiya. Sakura then grabbed a small medical kit she was given and started treating her own wounds with small bandages. She heaved deep breaths, soothing ointment over her many bruises. Inner Sakura ranted on what a bitch her teacher was. She's sadistic, and she's going to kill me. Shanaru. When Tsunade had told her to expect physical conditioning, Sakura had expected exercises like running laps. Being a living target for endless barrages of blunt projectiles was not what she had in mind. Did I make the right choice? She winced at a particularly nasty bruise on her right shoulder brushed against the cloth of her dress. When her master finally stopped throwing things at her, the blonde had just gone off to drink and told her offhandedly to get back to reading. Sakura groaned and deflated in her chair. How long do I have to do this? I really envy you, Naruto. Sakura finally understood the look of panic from Shizune whenever Tsunade did anything physical. After being the target for her insane training regimen, she had a full new appreciation for the brunette who offered some healing when the Sanin's back was turned. Worse, she felt a sinking feeling in the pit of her stomach. Tsunade Shisho said it was only going to get harder. She shivered, and continued her reading after the third day of the target practice torture. At least I should be done with the reading by tonight, and start learning some basic techniques maybe for when Naruto is back. A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. She shivered involuntarily. Knocks on the door while in an empty room always worried her after that meeting with the pair of Akatsuki. Well, if it's anyone strong like that, it's not like not answering the door would stop them. She thought, causing inner Sakura to chuckle nervously. With a deep breath she swung the door open, exhaling in relief. You're Tenten from Lee-san's team, right? She stepped back, eyeing the two visitors who wore what she could only think of as standard villager garb. The first was a tall man chewing on a long sanbon with medium-length straight lighter brown hair, whom she felt a passing familiarity to but couldn't quite put her finger on where she had seen him before. The second she recognized as a young girl closer to her age with dark eyes and the familiar twin buns of chocolate brown hair. Sakura-san. This is a relief. Tenten entered the room, and seemed happy to see a friendly face. Excuse me, but we were told we may find Jiraiya-sama here by Ebisu. The man replied coolly. Sakura nodded slowly. He is out with Naruto right now. I don't know when they will be back, but it should be soon. She offered. Oh, now I recognize you. You were the examiner in the finals. Hey, does that mean you know what happened in the arena? Is Kakashi-sensei okay? The Junin glanced ahead. My name is Shiranui Genma. Kakashi is alive with a few others right now, but he will be in danger. It seems Orochimaru has targeted the copy Nin. I know where he is heading, but we need Jiraiya-sama now. She froze at the name of the snake trader. Tsunade Shisho should be in the bar downstairs. I don't know when the others will be back. Genma nodded thoughtfully. You can probably stay in here for now, Tenten. I'll go speak with Tsunade-sama. The dark-haired girl nodded and entered the room while the Junin left down the hall. What happened to you guys, Tenten? Where have you stayed? Were you in the arena? Yes. I don't really know what happened still. I just got so drowsy, and when I awoke, there was fire everywhere and Genma standing over me. He just shouted at me to move, and that everyone else in the section I was sitting in had already been killed. She choked out, collapsing on a chair. He told me when the Sandaime was killed, the battle around the arena went bad, so the Konoha ninjas present started breaking the genjutsu on all they could and retreating. So many had their throats cut. Someone was probably about to do mine. Her hands reached at her neck in a nervous manner. Sakura shuddered. She had seen the aftermath. Naruto and I were in the forest. When we went back into Konoha, we saw, she didn't need to finish and both girls put their heads down. Do you know what happened to Neji, or Lee? Sakura shook her head frowning. You're the first person close to our age we've found, unless Naruto is with another now. Sakura looked out the window. Thereafter Kakashi-sensei, I hope Naruto hurries back. 2 days passed before Naruto and Jiraiya neared the city that had acted as their base of operations. Their journey had proved fruitless overall, finding no significant leads or even sound ninja to exterminate on their search. Naruto felt restless despite his exhaustive training. His friends were in danger from enemies that could be anywhere, yet he couldn't find either friend or foe. Heading straight for where he left Sakura, Naruto continued to worry about the state of events. Damn it, where is everyone? Reaching the room, he opened the door grumbling. Sakura sat up from the small desk and ran toward him. Naruto, you're back. He staggered as she threw her arms around him. Hugging her back shyly, he stepped back. Sakura-chan, good to see you too, but we didn't find anything. He sniffed at the air, wrinkling his nose. Do you smell like fish? She growled and slapped him, and he jumped backward. Naruto. Don't say impolite things like that. Sorry. He covered himself and hoped she didn't plan to hit him again. Instead, she sighed wearily. Yes, I smell like fish. It's part of the stupid training, so don't remind me. She threw her hands up while rolling her eyes. But more importantly, we know where Kakashi-sensei is. He dropped his arms from shielding himself, immediately brightening. But he's in danger. Tenten and Genma-san arrived 2 days ago, and Genma thinks Orochimaru is targeting Kakashi-sensei right now. We were waiting for you to get back. Naruto nodded thoughtfully. Ero Sennin went to talk to Tsunade Bakken, he probably knows by now. As if on cue, the big man appeared in the doorway. Naruto, we are leaving with Genma and Tenten now, let's go. The blonde nodded. I'm sorry Sakura-chan, I know I just got back. Wait, Jiraiya-sama, can I go with you this time too? Tsunade Shisho shouldn't mind, I want to see Kakashi-sensei, and I think Ino might be with him. The Sannin shrugged. It is alright with me, but hurry, we have to leave right away. The mixed five were soon speeding under the trees with Genma guiding the group toward a cliff region in the south. The Junin explained what he knew about the situation. Pakun, Kakashi's nin dog found me. He was unable to give me much information, just that Kakashi and Guy with a few others were holed up in the wilderness, and had fought off a large number of Sound Hunter nins. Kakashi seemed to expect that Orochimaru himself would be after them soon, and they've been constantly on the move. If they continued with their course, we should run into them ahead. But be ready, I have a bad feeling about this. Guy, we're surrounded. Help may not arrive in time. Choji, Ino, stay low. The silver-haired copy nin pushed up his protector, uncovering his Sharingan, and braced himself facing the direction of the presence he sensed. The bone-chilling serpentine voice of the Bane of Konoha sounded across their camp. Ku, you want to compare Sharingan, Kakashi? Shit, this isn't good. Orochimaru, you didn't. He stared ahead at the grim visage of the snake Sannin, into the twin orbs of blood red and onyx. Orochimaru let out another bone-chilling laugh. Sasuke was actually willing, although he had no other choice. Nothing mattered to him as long as his brother died, which just happens to be another one of my goals. The pale inhuman ex-Sannin stepped forward. Time to test this new Sharingan, and I couldn't think of a better guinea pig. So tell me Kakashi, do you still think you can sacrifice yourself to kill me? Kakashi-sensei, what is he talking about? Where's Sasuke-kun? A frantic Ino shrank away behind the Junin. Ino, Choji, do not fight him. Get away. Guy, let's go. Kakashi sternly stated, squaring off. The blonde trembled, and hesitated, looking fearfully around the trees. Who is he? He said Sasuke-kun was willing. A heavy arm pushed at her shoulder. Ino, let's get away. He's out of our league. Choji tugged at Ino's wrist, making for the trees. For a moment she was half dragged, before turning her attention ahead and running after her teammate into the underbrush at the clangs of steel echoing across the dark sky behind them. After a few minutes of a mad sprint through the dense forest, she put her hands on her knees and panted. Choji, what do we do? Where do we go? We can't just leave Kakashi and Guy senseis. You don't have to go anywhere. Humph, looks like I get some fun at least. But geez, why does it have to be a fat ass and a prissy brat? She whipped her head to the voice to see a very heavy-looking man stomp into the view ahead of them. The large man had a tuft of orange hair in an odd mohawk-ish haircut, and wore a large white shirt within a similar outfit to Orochimaru, with the knotted ropes and all. She whipped out a kunai with a shaking hand. Oh, so you have some fight in you after all. The attacker roared and started charging straight at her. Choji pushed her aside, catching the guy's charge. Ino, just back me up. Her friend then grunted in pain, bending forward. She watched in horror as the dark intricate lines covered the face and arms of the giant attacker, who slammed the Akimichi in the gut and tossed him like a doll to the side, while his beady orange eyes focused on her. Panicking, Ino jumped away. I'm going to die here. She frantically retreated, thankful that her smaller size allowed her to weave through the trees and put some distance between them. A large crashing sound resounded and she heard a grunt of surprise and turned to watch a large and familiar green ball rolling into their opponent. Great Choji! Then the man just laughed, redirecting her teammates' spin upward into the air. She stared in awe and disbelief as the man manhandled her large-boned friend. Then in the blink of an eye the opponent had appeared in front of her and eyes widening she raised her arms to block the blow. Her effort was in vain, as a searing pain erupted through her wrists and the heavy fist continued colliding into her ribs. With a broken shriek, she impacted the tree behind her with a crunch, and crumpled to the ground. A ringing tore through her ears and lights danced across her vision before all feeling went numb, a blackness swallowing her being. Taking deep calming breaths, his mind raced on a possible way to beat his opponent and save the genin. It's doubtful Orochimaru came alone, but whoever he brought with them would be safer for Choji and Ino than remaining here. Worse, Kabuto may be present. He parried a few incoming kunai, and jumped away from a quickly released fire jutsu. Something's not right. He's holding back, I see, so I'm just a guinea pig. He wants to test his Sharingan against a Sharingan. Guy shouted wordlessly, smashing his fist forward into the snake Sanin only to have him melt away into mud. Kakashi spun around, launching a kunai to collide with another incoming projectile. This isn't going anywhere. If I use the Reikiri, he could just copy it. Same with any other technique. His chakra supply far exceeds my own. Guy has more of an advantage against the Sharingan, but Orochimaru is more of a ninjutsu specialist and genjutsu secondary type. If he opened the gates while I used the Reikiri as a distraction, he ducked under a series of rapid blows, flipping backward while Guy sprang into a flying rotating kick. Sharingan met Sharingan, and both ninjas went against a series of counter-attacks, each predicting each other's next move. After the barrage of blows, Guy traded his place with a high-speed taijutsu combo. He breathed heavily, maximizing the break. No good, my Sharingan drains my stamina too fast. I can't let this go on too long, yet I have to conserve chakra until we have an opening. Damn it. Ino, Choji, stay alive. The distant sound of ringing metal, explosions, and breaking trees alerted the group of the ongoing battles ahead. Tenten shivered worriedly at the situation, keeping up with her companions. Guy-sensei should be here, and maybe Lee. What the hell is this? She froze quickly, looking at the shouting Naruto, a long thread wrapped around his legs. Sakura to his side was trapped, and struggled against the bond. It's like a giant spider web, it isn't breaking. Sakura groaned, trying to rip at the silvery strands. Jiraiya and Genma frowned, having stepped over the many strings instinctively. Jiraiya inspected a strand. This has chakra in it. A very strange trap. Naruto, use the first part of your training. Sakura struggled further, twisting into a more comfortable position. Right. Naruto held his palm out and Tenten watched a small amount of visible blue chakra swirl in his grasp. He held the swirl to the strings, which snapped upon contact. Jiraiya nodded in approval at Sakura's idea, as Naruto cloned several copies of himself to clear the area of the string. These guys make quite the team. Oh, someone has broken free of my web. Orochimaru doesn't wish to be disturbed right now. Sakura froze while Naruto growled at the name. Tenten scanned the canopy, eyes spotting a dark-skinned man wearing a sound protector with 3 pairs of arms. He's like a spider. A moment passed before 3 more figures appeared near the treetops. One was a solemn, pale-skinned man with white hair in a flowing robe, standing tall and radiated an aura of danger and power. Another was a girl, whom she assumed was a bit older than herself, with crimson hair and a dark skullcap and a sneer across her face. The third was another pale-faced man, with what appeared to be a second head hanging limp off the side of his shoulder. What vile-looking lackeys. Some troublesome opponents it looks like. Jiraiya-sama, I think we can infer that Orochimaru is fighting Kakashi and Guy right now. You should help them, we will handle these. The white-haired legendary Leaf Nin hesitated before sighing. You're right, I'm afraid. You guys, be careful. I sense these aren't normal opponents, be ready for anything. He dashed toward the distant sounds of battle. The second pale man and the female of the sound shinobi maid moved to jump after. Naruto and Sakura sprang after the Sannin. Arrow Sennin. Guys, we got those too. Tenten swallowed watching the four disappear into the trees after Jiraiya. Genma cursed under his breath. Oi Tenten, take Spider-Man. I'll fight the guy who needs a tan. She nodded slowly and pulled out her scrolls as the Junin dashed ahead at a high speed and jumped toward his chosen opponent who flipped backward. She suddenly felt very alone staring at the six-armed man after Genma had vanished in the nearby forest. Tisk, looks like I get left with a weakling. At least you might make an interesting game. She shivered at the cold tone, the dark man hanging by the sticky strand swinging out of sight. Tenten cautiously scanned the area, then caught sight of many small creatures swinging and dropping toward her. She gasped and felt as if her skin was crawling at the sight of the many spiders. I won't be that easy. She whipped out her weapon scroll and started hurling a barrage of kunai intercepting the arachnids. With a spray of guts when each blade hit its mark, she continued to back up, launching more projectiles. This is seriously creepy. The weapon specialist Genin was almost caught off guard by a series of golden arrow-like rods flying toward her. Intercepting the rods with her own projectiles, she panted. This guy is dangerous. I can't even see him and he can keep rapid attacks up. She felt a chill in the air and her heart thumped against her chest and she dropped to the floor, an arrow flying at her from behind. The attacks are coming from more directions. She screamed, throwing more weapons at approaching spiders, then crying out in pain when a hard projectile slammed into her shoulder. She gripped at the golden material and yanked it out, wincing at the pain from the bleeding wound. I have to use it. She whipped out her twin rising dragon scrolls. I hope this helps. He adjusted the senbon in his mouth, staring down his white-haired opponent. This guy, he's definitely different from the Spider-Man. Another league even. Sorry Tenten, it's safer for you if we fight separate. Time to test his style. He readied two kunai between his fingers, and threw them toward the man who simply raised his arm. Genma raised his eyebrow at the clang as his weapons impacted and bounced off spiky bone-like extensions off the man's wrist. No seals, a keke genke. Geez. His opponent pointed at him and he realized that he was attempting a ranged attack, and exploited his speed, dodging the bone-like bullets fired in his direction. Ranged isn't going to work, let's test his taijutsu. He sprang over another spray of bone and dashed side to side, leading with a kick in a short arc toward the head. He grimaced and halted mid-attack before being intercepted by an arm with a sharp-looking bone protruding from it. That's quite the defense this guy has. He continued to test the henchman, deftly dodging attacks sent his way while all of his own attacks were blocked by bone or cancelled to prevent self-injury. Jumping backward, he disengaged and went through a flurry of hand signs. If physical attacks won't work, time to use ninjutsu. Starting off with a basic fire attack, he let loose a jet of flame, and quickly followed up, jumping to the side preparing another blast. He stepped back, watching for the smoke to clear from his fireballs, and spat out his senbon at an incoming bone projectile. Regaining visual contact, he rolled his eyes, noticing the ninja was totally unscathed and covered in an odd pattern of black lines. Further examination, he concluded the man could encase himself with his own bones, providing shielding from even strong elemental ninjutsu. Geez, this isn't going to be a quick fight. Sakura kept pace with Naruto, focusing her eyes on the two sound shinobi. After a short chase, they turned around, the female chuckling and whispering something to her partner. Her eyes caught sight a dark irregular bruise mark on the neck. They're like Sasuke. The crimson-haired girl then performed a few seals and slammed her palm toward a large branch. Naruto's eyes widened in recognition of the move, and a pattern of black lines encased her visible skin. Sakura-chan, she's summoning something. She watched ahead, three large figures slowly coming into view from the technique's veiling smoke. The summoner then raised a flute, beginning to play an eerie melody. The gray-haired sound nin stared toward her and hopped several branches in her direction as the ogres jumped into action. Forced to jump in different directions, Sakura separated from Naruto, diving away from the charging ninja. She frowned, staring at the teen, which cut her off from returning to Naruto's side. I won't slow Naruto down this time, Shinoru. Sakura dropped low under his charge and raised her arms to block his incoming fist, and gasped when a second hand snaked from the edge of his arm, catching her past her guard. What the hell? Catching her breath, she backed up, sparing a quick glance toward Naruto. Her blonde teammate was engaging the ogre-like beings, readying a Rasengan, and she barely caught sight of the spherical orb ripping through the first of the three. Way to go, Naruto. Turning her attention back to her opponent, Sakura jumped backward from a swiftly delivered kick. This is bad, I don't have anything to use against him other than ninja tools. She started to curl an explosive tag over a kunai and readied another one along her wrist. She slapped the second onto the bottom of a branch as she swung down. Falling into her trap, she hid a smile and tossed her enhanced kunai toward the attacker with its fuse triggered. His eyes locked on the sizzling kunai, and he dived toward the second branch, which erupted into flames. Got him, Shinoru. She looked back to watch Naruto finish off the last of the summons, much to the surprise of their controller, who growled. Features turned a darker reddish color, while horns sprouted from her head. What is with these guys? She froze when Naruto stood still, staring ahead, his face twisted in pain. Genjutsu. The flute. Naruto's arms slowly stretched outward. Damn it, I have to help him. Seeing a small rock on the ground, she picked up the stone. Sorry, Naruto. Sakura whipped the rock toward her friend, while throwing a kunai toward the crimson-haired girl. Struck by the light throw of the rock, Naruto shook his head and glanced about. The genjutsu interrupted and the dark kunoichi jumped away from the incoming kunai, her back to a large trunk. Sakura jumped ahead while Naruto recovered, landing on the branch of the redhead. She sliced forward with her kunai, causing the opponent to curse and block with her flute, cracking the instrument. I did it. She started to jab at the opponent, then screeched when her opponent's fist connected into her stomach with much more force than she expected. Sakura coughed, flying off the branch, sprawling through the air. She heard a rapid rustle during her fall, and glanced toward the sound, seeing the two demonic abominations charging straight at her. They had dark skin, yellow eyes, with horns, and the complementary halves of their bodies appeared made from a different and harder material. She screamed while unable to dodge or protect herself from the incoming attack of her original opponents. Sakura-chan. The sight of the rapidly advancing grotesque twins caused Sakura to clench her eyes tightly. This time she knew Naruto would be unable to protect her from his current position on the other side of the incoming attackers. I'm sorry, Naruto. Memories of the recent weeks she had spent with the blonde flashed through her mind, as she braced herself for the incoming impact with the ground below and likely evisceration from the dual abominations. Her eyes shot open in surprised wonder upon landing upon a cushiony surface, absorbing her fall of what should have been a painful collision. She felt the surface and looked at her position. She was suspended in the air by a platform of fine yellow sand. Temporary relief instantly melted into a feeling of pure terror. Gaara. Naruto may have beaten him once, but that was one-on-one. She flinched as the sides of the earthen cloud rose around her, and closed her eyes once again, afraid of being crushed. What followed next was a dull thunk sound of the Sound Brothers smashing into the side of the cocoon of sand. Briefly aware of motion, she nervously looked about as the sand encasing her dissolved. What's going on? To her right stood Gaara, pristinely dressed in a newer outfit than she remembered. The crimson-haired sand shinobi stood tall, his signature gourd attached securely on his back, releasing a steady stream of sand which gathered around his feet. What really struck her as different was his face. Gone was the look of madness and murderous anger in his eyes, and his expression was serenely calm. His voice betrayed no emotion in a commanding tone. Don't move. Confusion slowly replaced the terror as she stared dumbly ahead. He's going to make me watch him kill Naruto. At the thought, she nervously scanned the forest for him and spotted her teammate on a branch staring down Gaara. The three sound nin were temporarily forgotten. In a calm voice, the Shukaku vessel explained his presence. Uzumaki Naruto. I have come to lend you my strength in protecting your precious people. He's on our side. I have a big debt to repay you. Naruto's eyes flashed with understanding and he empathically nodded, turning back toward the trio of demonic-looking opponents. Gaara. Thanks. Let's go wild. The sound shinobi exchanged a wary glance with each other, moving into attack positions. With a hearty cry, Naruto stormed ahead, a wave of sand in pursuit. The crimson-haired Kunoichi received his charge, her distorted face twisted in a sneer. Naruto grappled with her, latching onto her wrists and grinned. Her eyes widened and she tried to pull away, futilely muttering a string of curses as the sand surged around the pair. Sakura gasped when Gaara clenched his fist, crushing the two with a muffled squishing sound. Wait, Naruto wouldn't let himself be smashed like that. It had to be a cage bunshin. I hope. She directed her attention to the twins, who were unable to breach Gaara's defense, but still managed to stay out of harm's way. She became worried once they began performing a complex series of seals until orange and yellow blurs burst from the earth, securing them in place. Gaara's lips curled in a slight grin as his sand caught the final opponents, disposing them with the help of more Naruto clones. Sakura let out a deep breath she hadn't realized she was holding when Naruto appeared on the branch next to her in the late Kage's sun. Gaara, thank you for your help, but what on earth are you doing here? What is going on? Her friend animatedly stamped and inquired. There will be time for explanations later. My siblings and I are here on my accord to repay my debt to you. You still have friends fighting in the forest, yes? We must move quickly. The stoic and fearsome Ichibi's Jinchuriki calmly replied. Frowning, Sakura nodded and tugged at Naruto's sleeve. He's right, Naruto, we have to hurry. Her fear of the teen who had previously tried to kill her abated and she turned to their new ally. The sand helped destroy Konoha. He said he was acting on his own accord, and his fight with Naruto. Just what happened? But our friends. She bit her lip and choked out a timid, Gaara-san, thank you. He nodded in silent reply and the three dashed off to help the others. Arriving where she broke off from her siblings, Temari spotted the girl she easily beat with at the preliminaries, fighting for her life against an unseen foe. She's using those twin scroll rapid attacks. Who is the opponent? Her face twisted into a grimace seeing the green guts of squished and shredded spiders rain down to the ground, covering the sides of the mighty tree trunks. When Tenten's attack was finally depleted, she stood back panting, gripping at a bloody spot on her shirt. Temari frowned and analyzed the situation. She had to use her greatest attacks just to defend herself. She's exhausted. The enemy is hidden and appears to have traps and minions under his control. A long-range sniping strategy type. Bun girl will be toast if I don't act. Unfurling her fan, she let out a sigh, having not wanted to give up her element of surprise before even knowing where the enemy was. Perhaps I can stay hidden too, and play his game. Then the largest, most hideous spider she had ever seen descended upon the brunette, who broke into a frantic scream. Shit, she's lost it. Temari growled, and swooped down, swinging her fan, blowing the spider back with a powerful gust of chakra-laced wind. Why you? She gripped a kunai with a shaking hand. Relax. If I wasn't here to help, I wouldn't have blasted that spider, would I? You're out of your league here. The blonde huffed indignantly at the Konoha Kunoichi. Tenten bit her lip and furrowed her brow in confusion, nervously glancing around her surroundings as she caught her breath. So we fi. A pained gurgled scream wrenched through the throat of the dark-haired Kunoichi, and Temari stared in horror and disbelief as long golden arrow lanced through the weapon specialist, pinning to the tree behind her. Tenten slid slowly to her knees, a long cord connected to the arrow sliding through the hole above her breast. Not wasting time to suffer a similar fate, Temari bit her thumb, and rubbed her blood along her fan. Tenten slumped face down against the ground in a growing puddle of blood, her position slightly disturbed by dangling on the strong silky strand. Shit. I meant to save her. I didn't expect that kind of attack. Performing her summon, she swung her fan, letting loose a powerful cutting wind slicing at the trunks and branches, clearing the area of the forest. A flash of movement caught her eye, and she focused chakra and let loose another wave of wind toward the flicker between falling trees. She dashed after her attack to ensure the kill in the concealing wrecked portion of forest. She spotted a dark-skinned six-armed man attempting to climb under a trunk. With a loud growl, Tamari struck her fan forward, releasing a cyclone at the arachnid ninja. The girl, after confirming his demise, the blonde sprang back in the direction where Tenten fell. Dodging another barrage of larger and faster bone projectiles, he dodged behind a larger tree to catch his breath. None of my ninjutsu or taijutsu is getting through to this guy. Even if I hit him, his bones absorb most the blow and he can protect all vital spots with them. Genma dived away as a giant skeletal spike erupted from the ground, devastating the tree he had used for cover. And that curse mark, he seems to be drawing more on it now. The Junin frowned when the intricate black pattern spread over the being of his bone-using opponent and his features turned into something out of a nightmare. That's something I haven't seen before. The next volley of attacks, Genma had to focus everything on defense and staying out of harm's way from the field of bones erupting from the earth in an attempt to skewer him. His eyes widened when he sensed his opponent's ploy, and tried to verify his fears, running up the side of one of the larger rib-like attacks. I'll be trapped at this rate. Launching himself over, he skipped along the tops and held his breath as the scenery around him emulated one giant fly trap. I guess this is it. He prepared seals for one last ninjutsu in attempt to perhaps blast the incoming spikes back, but they never came. Surprised, he turned his head toward his opponent, who stood still, eyes staring unblinkingly forward. His body merged with the ground. A trail of blood followed down from his mouth, dribbling to his chest. He died mid-battle. He let out his breath in a relieved gasp. Geez, it doesn't get much closer than that. Have to go help Tenten and the others now. Hauling the pair of bundles on his back, Kankuro sprinted along the ground through another section of the forest. Gaara sure decided a fine time to turn over a new leaf. Tish, dragging me out here to fight and save people we don't even know. Stopping for a moment, he listened intently ahead. The sound of trees crashing down and splintering wood echoed across the ravine. Almost there. The earth shook, and he nearly lost his balance, glancing ahead at the towering monstrosity. That is one of the Konoha nins. The fatty that was beaten by the sound Genin Gaara was supposed to fight. Choji stomped his feet toward an unseen opponent as Kankuro neared the battlefield. I can't go in too reckless, he may think I'm an enemy. From his vantage point, the sight of the giant Akamichi made him wonder if he even needed help. Then he noticed the deep, haggard breaths, and a grunt of pain as the incredibly large Choji slammed into the ground, shrinking to his normal size. Shit, he's actually going all out and losing. Jumping ahead, he focused on the large, dark-skinned horned opponent. That tubby is too large to trap and skewer. I'll have to use ranged weaponry and whittle him down. From his hidden position under a leafy branch, he let loose his two puppets surrounding the unaware enemy. The long chakra strings would give him the advantage of remaining veiled while assaulting the all-brawn-looking sound ninja. Make it in time. His support puppet flew through the air to intercept the attack, only for its main body to be smashed into splinters. The large opponent's blow had continued on, crushing the unmoving Choji. Mentally growling, he controlled the independent parts of the broken puppet, and wheeled the other into position, launching a barrage of poison-tipped projectiles, catching the man in the back. Roaring in pain, the horned opponent stomped on the earth, and used a large section as a shield against the barrage of blows. Kankuro began quick thrusts in several directions of the many blades, bleeding the enemy to death. The poison and stabs didn't kill him. If I was fighting him one-on-one and he knew the general area I was, he'd have won easily. He swallowed slowly, seeing the punishment the foe was able to absorb in his raw strength and earth ninjutsu. Now, noticing his opponent's movement was growing slower, and he'd be unable to stop his full assault, he disassembled both puppets and sent all the pieces' blades out, killing the man from several directions in a fountain of blood. The horns receded, revealing a battered and bleeding carcass of a large, pale-skinned man. His eyes scanned the field, spotting what he recognized as the blonde Konoha Kunoichi's broken body from the preliminaries crumpled against the base of a tree. I may be too late to help either of them. His eyes followed back to the Akamichi, and ran toward him, unable to see any sign of breathing. Gathering lightning chakra in his hand, Kakashi began to perform his Reikiri. His normal eye flashed his unspoken intentions to his comrade and spandex-wearing rival. Guy, I'll try to give you the time you need. Orochimaru is just toying with us. He could have summoned snakes, or worse if his goal was to kill us by now. His hand burned with the electrical glow, lighting the dark area, and he gathered chakra in his legs for a mad dash toward the snake Sanin, whom began charging his arm up in a similar manner. My own move used against me. Guy took his cue, and crossing his arms in front of him began forcing his chakra gates open. Energy swirled around him, a strong wind circling, and the earth cracked. His skin grew dark from the biologic change of his blood and chakra system spreading forcibly through his system. Muscles and veins bulging, made a Guy burst into action with his completion of the initial gates opened. Kakashi used all of his speed and thrust his Chidori toward Orochimaru's. A deafening thunderclap echoed across the landscape, and he felt his arm and hand begin to tear up through the sheer power of the collisions of the attack. Sparing no moment, Kakashi leapt backwards while Guy caught Orochimaru in a strong taijutsu barrage in a seemingly impossible high-speed combo. Their pale opponent roared in pain, rolling with each punch and kick, recoiling from the mighty blows, his inhuman body bending in unnatural ways. Finally, Guy released the view gate, and in a bright aura of light, began a rapid series of punches, setting Orochimaru in flame. Kakashi caught his breath, quietly observing and scanning the area in case the Bane of Konoha somehow managed to escape or survive Guy's morning peacock attack. The broken pale visage collapsed on the ground, and Guy landed next to him, panting heavily. His was face flushed, energy spent, and his muscles torn. He wavered on his feet, putting his arm out in case the battle continued. Sharingan focusing, Kakashi confirmed their worst fears. The devastated body melted away into mud. He could use the replacement so fast, I could scarcely detect it with the Sharingan. Nearly spent, both Junin knew they could not win this battle now. Gathering what was left of their strength, they squared off, ready to meet their dooms. Orochimaru, you are not fit to have the title of Sannin anymore. Both Junins turned their heads to the new arrival. Jiraiya-sama. The white-haired toad sage stood tall, staring down his snake counterpart. So you've come. You have saved me the trouble of hunting you down, Jiraiya. Both Sannin went through a series of seals, causing Kakashi and Guy to leap backward. The gargantuan bodies of Manda and Gamabunta cast long shadows over the ruined forest under the moonlight. Speaking quietly to his partner, Kakashi tossed him a soldier pill. Guy, Jiraiya-sama won't be able to win this alone. We have to be ready to back him up. Rest up your strength for a bit. Did Jiraiya come alone? One thing Kakashi knew was that the battle with Orochimaru had just entered an entirely new level. Sakura-chan, I think we should split up. She nearly lost her footing as the trio dashed toward sounds of battle. She sank at the words. Naruto. What do you mean? Ero Sennin said you were learning how to heal, our friends might need it. I can send some Kage Bunshin with you. Gaara and I can go help Ero Sennin, while you help our other friends. He offered. He's right, I would be more useful there. She didn't miss the hidden purpose of Naruto's plan either. He didn't want her anywhere near the Sannin's possible battle. Not even slowing his stride, 2 Kage Bunshin poofed into existence, flanking her. She sighed, defeated, nodding. Naruto, be careful, and split away from her friend with 2 of his clones as an escort. Soon she came to an area where it looked like something huge had batted away and smashed trees as if they were toys and surveyed the destruction. One of the Narutos tapped her on the shoulder and pointed. Is that Choji? She gasped, running toward the black-shrouded Sand Genin kneeling over a still Choji. Kankuro turned at the noise. You guys are here. I trust Gaara found you. I'm afraid I may have been too late. He solemnly replied, pointing toward a large tree not far away. Her jade eyes followed his finger trailing up the broken earth and locked on the point of interest. Her heart froze when she recognized the tuft of pale blonde hair crowning the heap. Oh God, Ino! The wind roared in anticipation of the clash of the two students of the Sandaime Hokage. Staring sternly at each other, the ex-teammates on their respective gargantuan summons sprang into action. The giant Manda uncoiled and slithered away from a downward slash of Gamabunta and his massive dirk. The earth shook with the great movement of the beast's attacks. Trading attacks and techniques, both Sanins and summons fought a fierce battle, changing the once forest landscape into a desolate wasteland, complete with freshly formed cliffs and valleys. Gamabunta dived high into the air upward from the snaking tail of Manda, and began spitting a large quantity of oil. Jiraiya complemented the attack with a teamwork fireball, and the air was set ablaze with the great flame. The night sky was alight as if a second sun was crashing into the land. Kakashi and Guy, witnessing the fight from the ground, could only stare in awe. Despite their status as two of Konoha's greatest ninja, neither could compete with the raw potential of the large summons. Jiraiya's eyes narrowed during Gamabunta's descent to the earth, ready to spring away when Manda would next strike, having predicted the snake's escape from discarding its outer skin. Moments later, the giant maw of the purple monstrosity advanced to intercept. Gamabunta replied by shooting a giant water bullet straight down his rival's throat. The startled snake thrashed its head, reflexively closing its mouth to have the giant frog land on top, crushing his skull. With a deep guttural growl, the snake boss was unsummoned. Orochimaru cursed his cowardly and irritating summon, running a scarce amount of blood up the sides of his arm and rapidly performing seals. A moment later, 3 giant brown snakes materialized. Jiraiya quickly responded, turning the ground underneath 2 of the larger snakes into a massive hellish swamp, submerging them under the earth. The last of the snakes struck out at the frog duo, forcing them to jump backward. Using another powerful water bullet, the pressure of which smashed the final snake, Gamabunta exhausted his chakra stores. Orochimaru dashed toward Jiraiya as the frog boss dismissed himself. Jiraiya readied himself for the incoming attack, pausing as a wall of sand appeared in front of him. Arrow Sennin. Naruto and Gaara appeared riding on top of the earthen cloud. Naruto. He's out of your league. Stay back, only a Sannin like myself or Tsunade can challenge him now. The white-haired man bellowed to his student. Kukuku, this is an interesting turn of events. Jiraiya, the Kyuubi brat, and Kakashi all in one place together against me. Naruto stared into the black and crimson Sharingan of Orochimaru. He froze in realization that Sasuke may really be gone forever. I think I know someone who'd love to meet you 3 again. Jiraiya's eyes widened at the declaration as Orochimaru began his technique. Naruto, Kakashi, all of you. Get out of here now. He frantically shouted, performing a fireball jutsu to attempt to stop his snake counterpart. A large coffin erupted from the earth, intercepting the flame, and was unsigned by the heat. Jiraiya focused his will, attempting to cancel the technique only to fail. Naruto only stared in wonder at what was happening, pondering who Orochimaru could mean that he and Jiraiya had in common. The coffin opened, revealing a tall, pale and dry from death's sleep, blonde man. The Konoha shinobi all froze at the sight. Naruto questioned to the air, the Yondaime. Tears streamed down Jiraiya and Kakashi's cheeks. Minato. The sickly-looking new arrival scanned his surroundings and his eyes narrowed on the young Uzumaki. His voice, soft yet commanding, echoed across the trees. He looked at his hands and then back to the boy. It seems I was brought here through forbidden means, as my will is not my own. Naruto. My son, how I wished I could see you grow. You look strong and will become great, but please leave here at once. Naruto quivered at the words, choking out, Son, you were my father. A pained look crossed the elder blonde's face. I do not deserve that title, as no father would ever give a son the burden I did. A touching family moment. It will be entertaining to watch the father kill his son and his sensei and student. The insane Sannin cackled madly, placing a sealed kunai into the back of the Yondaime Hokage's head. Color and strength returned to his features upon entry of the seal, and his cool sapphire eyes hardened, his gaze locked on his son. Now kill them all. Gaara tensed at the unpleasant reunion, discharging more sand from his gourd in anticipation. It was at that moment that one of Naruto's cage bunshin with Sakura unsummoned itself, giving him news of what she had found. The fate of his friends angered him further, hot tears searing down his cheeks, realizing that the man that sentenced him to a life of being shunned, the man he looked up to and dreamed of surpassing, was the same man he wished was always there, his father. His emotions went in flux, the Kyuubi's chakra clawing its way to the surface. The foul red demonic energy swirled around his body, giving even the calm Gaara pause in a moment of fear. His face elongated, the whisker marks becoming more pronounced, and his posture slouched into a feral stance. The Yondaime charged forward, upon Orochimaru's will, and Naruto intercepted the man with blinding speed and clawed hands in a fierce grapple. A blazing flame of red tails swirled around Naruto in a burning shield of hellfire. Kakashi and Guy remained frozen at the sight, while Jiraiya watched forward and roared to their opponent. Naruto, Orochimaru, this is unforgivable. None of them could bring themselves to interfere with the berserk Naruto and undead Yondaime, not that they had any method of doing so if they could in their exhausted states. The greatest of the Hokages and his son engaged in a rapid combat, colliding with each other in fierce strikes. Explosions and chakra flared across the sky, with a deafening clamor with each meeting of the superpowers. After a fierce combat of both shinobi utilizing their raw power and chakra alone, they squared off. Each one began to form a Rasengan. The Yondaime's eyes widened in a pained smile at the approach of his son's Kyuubi Rasengan. Naruto, I'm sorry, grow strong. Using the last of his will, he stayed his arm, allowing the incoming ball of swirling demonic power storm through his body. Naruto recoiled in shock and fear of what he had just done, his berserker rage quickly abating in a wailing cry of anguish. The other observers remained wide-eyed, witnessing the event as the greatest of the Hokages was ground into a mist of swirling blood and energy. With the emotional shock and Naruto's energy expended, he collapsed on the ground backwards unconscious. Orochimaru growled at the failure of his summon, underestimating the will of the Yondaime and the power of the Kyuubi vessel, and sought to end the boy's life before he could recover. However, Orochimaru's body hesitated, unable to deliver the final blow at that moment. Inwardly cursing, he realized the transfer from Sasuke was too fresh, and the small part of the Uchiha's subconsciousness presented a small delay on his desires. Although this problem would be remedied with the passage of time when the last corners of the Uchiha's mind would be fully devoured. Using this hesitation, the sound leader took note of his surroundings, notably Jiraiya dashing forward to cover Naruto. A moment later, he also realized the presence of a third-party chakra signature which he recognized as the chief spy of Akatsuki. Realizing with two Jinchuriki present, the infernal organization may prove to be a trouble and combine to eliminate him. He still lacked the Mangekyo, and his chakra was low after testing his Sharingan against the best of Konoha. He had no doubt that if one was present it was likely a second, and they would waste no time in preventing him from killing a pawn in their long-term goals. Yes, he decided, his purpose this day was already attained, the Sharingan worked beautifully. The Konoha insects here proved no real threat to his future, and it'd be interesting to watch them scurry and hide in dark places living like cockroaches. With a sneer he withdrew from the battlefield, granting the exhausted Leaf refugees a well-earned, but costly victory. Genma overlooked the section of the forest where the Jiraiya's group had initially split up, and where Tenten should be. The forest here was completely flattened, horizontal slashes through the thick trunks as if a giant blade of wind cleaved across the terrain. His sharp eyes caught sight of a tall blonde, a large fan strapped to her back hovering over a fallen form over blood-drenched ground. He instantly recognized the Sand Shinobi, and descended with wrath toward her. The blonde wind user spun at his approach, holding her fan in front of her defensively. Wait, I'm trying to help the girl. He stayed his arm coldly staring at Tamari. You were one of those that helped with the destruction of Konoha. You were in league with Orochimaru then, why not now? Just listen please. We were tricked by the sound. Orochimaru impersonated our father, the Cage. This girl will die soon if she isn't cared for. Her lung was nicked and she's lost too much blood. I already took care of her opponent, but I don't think she can be saved. Genma's eyes narrowed at the explanation, and he dashed forward, kneeling over the fallen Tenten. Not lowering his guard, he checked her vitals and began examining. He pulled out a long bandana and began using it to staunch the wound. This looks like a mortal wound. Even with a well-trained medic nearby, I don't think she'd be able to pull through. I'm sorry Tenten, if only I could have ended my battle sooner. Tears streaming down her cheeks, Sakura knelt over her fallen rival and friend. Please live Ino. She checked her life signs, finding a faint heartbeat before moving on to further diagnostics. Her ribs and arms appear to be broken, and her right arm is dislocated from a crushed shoulder. There could also be internal bleeding. Sakura took a deep breath, and practiced what little she knew of healing, pouring chakra with a few seals, a soft green glow enveloping her hands. Carefully she probed the technique through the body of the blonde, repairing what she could. After intense minutes where sweat and tears dripped down her face, she wiped her forehead. Sakura-chan, is Ino alright? She shivered, and shakily replied. I think she'll alive. I can't do anything for her bones though, I just don't know enough. She broke into sobs, with one of the Naruto Bunshins resting his hands on her shoulder. I still have to look at Choji. The black-shrouded puppeteer shook his head and quietly said. No use, I'm afraid. He's dead. His windpipe was completely crushed. Damn it. The second Naruto clone screamed and unsummoned himself at the news after glancing at the still corpse of Choji. The grip on her shoulder tightened painfully and she turned questioningly to the remaining replication. Naruto, that hurts. Her eyes widened, seeing his eyes a deep bloody ruby red, the whiskers darkening. What's happening to him? A moment later a flare of malevolent and burning chakra erupted around the doppelganger, knocking her to the ground. When she looked up again, the Cage Bunshin was already gone. The Kyuubi, something is happening to Naruto. She started to stand up, ready to dart where Naruto and Gaara were headed when Kankuro stopped her. Your friend here needs you more. He gestured to Ino. The Sand Genin continued. I wouldn't worry so much about that kid. Gaara is with him and they are both strong. Besides, I don't think that guy would forgive himself if you get hurt accidentally by his demon form. Sakura frowned, staring at the unconscious face of the crumpled blonde. I'm still not strong enough to help Naruto. I can't even do much for Ino, and Choji. Why did all of this happen? We should stay put then, until Naruto and the others come back. She tried to convince herself. Because they will come back. Kukuku, this is an interesting turn of events. Jiraiya, the Kyuubi brat, and Kakashi all in one place together against me. Naruto stared into the black and crimson Sharingan of Orochimaru. He froze in realization that Sasuke may really be gone forever. I think I know someone who'd love to meet you three again. Jiraiya's eyes widened at the declaration as Orochimaru began his technique. Naruto, Kakashi, all of you. Get out of here now. He frantically shouted, performing a fireball jutsu to attempt to stop his snake counterpart. A large coffin erupted from the earth, intercepting the flame, and was unsigned by the heat. Jiraiya focused his will, attempting to cancel the technique only to fail. Naruto only stared in wonder at what was happening, pondering who Orochimaru could mean that he and Jiraiya had in common. The coffin opened, revealing a tall, pale and dry from death's sleep, blonde man. The Konoha shinobi all froze at the sight. Naruto questioned to the air, the Yondaime. Tears streamed down Jiraiya and Kakashi's cheeks. Minato. The sickly-looking new arrival scanned his surroundings and his eyes narrowed on the young Uzumaki. His voice, soft yet commanding, echoed across the trees. He looked at his hands and then back to the boy. It seems I was brought here through forbidden means, as my will is not my own. Naruto. My son, how I wished I could see you grow. You look strong and will become great, but please leave here at once. Naruto quivered at the words, choking out, Son, you were my father. A pained look crossed the elder blonde's face. I do not deserve that title, as no father would ever give a son the burden I did. A touching family moment. It will be entertaining to watch the father kill his son and his sensei and student. The insane Sanin cackled madly, placing a sealed kunai into the back of the Yondaime Hokage's head. Color and strength returned to his features upon entry of the seal, and his cool sapphire eyes hardened, his gaze locked on his son. Now kill them all. Gaara tensed at the unpleasant reunion, discharging more sand from his gourd in anticipation. It was at that moment that one of Naruto's cage bunshin with Sakura unsummoned itself, giving him news of what she had found. The fate of his friends angered him further, hot tears searing down his cheeks, realizing that the man that sentenced him to a life of being shunned, the man he looked up to and dreamed of surpassing, was the same man he wished was always there, his father. His emotions went in flux, the Kyuubi's chakra clawing its way to the surface. The foul red demonic energy swirled around his body, giving even the calm Gaara pause in a moment of fear. His face elongated, the whisker marks becoming more pronounced, and his posture slouched into a feral stance. The Yondaime charged forward, upon Orochimaru's will, and Naruto intercepted the man with blinding speed and clawed hands in a fierce grapple. A blazing flame of red tails swirled around Naruto in a burning shield of hellfire. Kakashi and Guy remained frozen at the sight, while Jiraiya watched forward and roared to their opponent. Naruto, Orochimaru, this is unforgivable. None of them could bring themselves to interfere with the berserk Naruto and undead Yondaime, not that they had any method of doing so if they could in their exhausted states. The greatest of the Hokages and his son engaged in a rapid combat, colliding with each other in fierce strikes. Explosions and chakra flared across the sky, with a deafening clamor with each meeting of the superpowers. After a fierce combat of both shinobi utilizing their raw power and chakra alone, they squared off. Each one began to form a Rasengan. The Yondaime's eyes widened in a pained smile at the approach of his son's Kyuubi Rasengan. Naruto. I'm sorry. Grow strong. Using the last of his will, he stayed his arm, allowing the incoming ball of swirling demonic power storm through his body. Naruto recoiled in shock and fear of what he had just done, his berserker rage quickly abating in a wailing cry of anguish. The other observers remained wide-eyed, witnessing the event as the greatest of the Hokages was ground into a mist of swirling blood and energy. With the emotional shock and Naruto's energy expended, he collapsed on the ground backwards unconscious. Orochimaru growled at the failure of his summon, underestimating the will of the Yondaime and the power of the Kyuubi vessel, and sought to end the boy's life before he could recover. However, Orochimaru's body hesitated, unable to deliver the final blow at that moment. Inwardly cursing, he realized the transfer from Sasuke was too fresh, and the small part of the Uchiha's subconsciousness presented a small delay on his desires. Although this problem would be remedied with the passage of time when the last corners of the Uchiha's mind would be fully devoured. Using this hesitation, the sound leader took note of his surroundings, notably Jiraiya dashing forward to cover Naruto. A moment later, he also realized the presence of a third-party chakra signature which he recognized as the chief spy of Akatsuki. Realizing with two Jinchuriki present, the infernal organization may prove to be a trouble and combine to eliminate him. He still lacked the Mangekyo, and his chakra was low after testing his Sharingan against the best of Konoha. He had no doubt that if one was present it was likely a second, and they would waste no time in preventing him from killing a pawn in their long-term goals. Yes, he decided, his purpose this day was already attained, the Sharingan worked beautifully. The Konoha insects here proved no real threat to his future, and it'd be interesting to watch them scurry and hide in dark places living like cockroaches. With a sneer he withdrew from the battlefield, granting the exhausted Leaf refugees a well-earned, but costly victory. Genma overlooked the section of the forest where the Jiraiya's group had initially split up, and where Tenten should be. The forest here was completely flattened, horizontal slashes through the thick trunks as if a giant blade of wind cleaved across the terrain. His sharp eyes caught sight of a tall blonde, a large fan strapped to her back hovering over a fallen form over blood-drenched ground. He instantly recognized the sand shinobi, and descended with wrath toward her. The blonde wind user spun at his approach holding her fan in front of her defensively. Wait, I'm trying to help the girl. He stayed his arm coldly staring at Tamari. You were one of those that helped with the destruction of Konoha. You were in league with Orochimaru then, why not now? Just listen please. We were tricked by the sound. Orochimaru impersonated our father, the Cage. This girl will die soon if she isn't cared for. Her lung was nicked and she's lost too much blood. I already took care of her opponent, but I don't think she can be saved. Genma's eyes narrowed at the explanation, and he dashed forward kneeling over the fallen Tenten. Not lowering his guard he checked her vitals and began examining. He pulled out a long bandana and began using it to staunch the wound. This looks like a mortal wound, even with a well-trained medic nearby, I don't think she'd be able to pull through. I'm sorry Tenten, if only I could have ended my battle sooner. Tears streaming down her cheeks, Sakura knelt over her fallen rival and friend. Please live Ino. She checked her life signs, finding a faint heartbeat before moving on to further diagnostics. Her ribs and arms appear to be broken, and her right arm is dislocated from a crushed shoulder. There could also be internal bleeding. Sakura took a deep breath, and practiced what little she knew of healing, pouring chakra with a few seals, a soft green glow enveloping her hands. Carefully she probed the technique through the body of the blonde, repairing what she could. After intense minutes where sweat and tears dripped down her face, she wiped her forehead. Sakura-chan, is Ino alright? She shivered, and shakily replied. I think she'll alive. I can't do anything for her bones though, I just don't know enough. She broke into sobs, with one of the Naruto Bunshins resting his hands on her shoulder. I still have to look at Choji. The black-shrouded puppeteer shook his head and quietly said. No use, I'm afraid. He's dead. His windpipe was completely crushed. Damn it. The second Naruto clone screamed and unsummoned himself at the news after glancing at the still corpse of Choji. The grip on her shoulder tightened painfully and she turned questioningly to the remaining replication. Naruto, that hurts. Her eyes widened, seeing his eyes a deep bloody ruby red, the whiskers darkening. What's happening to him? A moment later a flare of malevolent and burning chakra erupted around the doppelganger, knocking her to the ground. When she looked up again, the Cage Bunshin was already gone. The Kyuubi, something is happening to Naruto. She started to stand up, ready to dart where Naruto and Gaara were headed when Kankuro stopped her. Your friend here needs you more. He gestured to Ino. The Sand Genin continued. I wouldn't worry so much about that kid. Gaara is with him and they are both strong. Besides, I don't think that guy would forgive himself if you get hurt accidentally by his demon form. Sakura frowned, staring at the unconscious face of the crumpled blonde. I'm still not strong enough to help Naruto. I can't even do much for Ino, and Choji, why did all of this happen? We should stay put then, until Naruto and the others come back. She tried to convince herself. Because they will come back. Kakashi. Guy, are you alright? They both nodded in affirmation. Jiraiya slung the unconscious Naruto over his shoulder and glanced toward the crimson-haired sand manipulator. Gaara of the Sand Village, right? Would you be up for coming with us? I think we would all benefit from a mutual explanation. He explained the city where Tsunade was currently staying to the group. Yes. We have much to discuss. My siblings were helping others in the forest, there may be fights still going on. Gaara curtly, descending to the ground on his cloud of sand. Jiraiya-sama, you know where Tsunade-sama is? I have a most youthful student who needs her attention. His dreams and future ride on her ability. I had to try hard to convince him to stay in the safety of a lodge not far from here. The enthusiastic spandex-wearing green beast of Konoha half shouted at the gathering. The Sannin rolled his eyes and waved his hand, muttering. Yes, guy. Fetch your student. Come, we have to find the others. Orochimaru is not the only strong power present, and we're in danger if we stay. What troubles me is why he withdrew. Yes. Guy stormed off with a burst of energy he lacked just moments before to fetch his prized subordinate. Choji and Ino were with us. When Orochimaru appeared, we had them run in this direction. Kakashi gestured toward a section of the forest still standing. The Junin sensei performed a series of seals for the summoning jutsu. A small cloud of smoke revealed Pakun appearing where his palm was set. Pakun, can you find any nearby Konoha shinobi and tell them to rendezvous toward the west? We'll make our way there to meet up with Tsunade-sama. Also, be sure to find Guy and show him where we're going. The brown pug saluted before catching sight of a certain blonde, and hesitated from dashing off. Naruto. Are Sasuke and Sakura alright then? I'm afraid you just missed Sasuke, but he will never be the Sasuke we knew again. The pug frowned, knowing what his master implied. Looking over the small gathering and quirking a small eyebrow up at Gaara, Pakun turned and dashed toward the humanoid sense he detected. Kakashi, Gaara, and Jiraiya carrying Naruto sped towards where Ino and Choji had retreated earlier. Within minutes they arrived at a section where the trees were swept away and crushed, their trunks snapped in half by something massive. A figure shrouded in full black spun to meet them, his hands out in a curious stance before sighing. Gaara, we have one dead, one serious or critical. Recognizing the genin as Kankuro, Naruto's two senseis ran past the lone sand nin at his news. Kakashi saw a sobbing Sakura and moved up. Sakura. She whipped around and saw Naruto. Naruto. What's wrong with him? She stood trembling. Kakashi scanned the clearing and saw the still form of Choji. A pang of sadness and guilt hit him, then his eye traced to the fallen Yamanaka. I'm glad you are fine, Sakura. Naruto will be okay, he's more emotionally hurt than anything right now, I'm afraid. How is Ino? She isn't in danger of dying now, I hope. Though most of the bones in her upper body are broken or fractured, I think. Why did all of this happen, Kakashi-sensei? She shrieked, falling to her knees, her eyes puffy and sore. The silver-haired Junin patted her head in a comforting gesture. A growing deposit of sand began to form underneath Ino, gently lifting her up on a soft bed of earth. Jiraiya nodded in approval, lifting his pupil up. Kakashi, take Naruto. I'll grab Choji. Sakura, we're going back to Tsunade. We'll be able to discuss this and rest then, okay? Are you hurt? She shook her head and moved to follow, rubbing the tears out of her eyes. Well, are we just going to stand here and let her die? We have to get her help. Genma frowned, considering their options. He could move fast enough to get her to Tsunade, if his stamina lasted carrying her, but the journey would likely kill the girl through the jostles of the pace he'd have to set. But if I have to try, there's Konoha's best medic in a town not far. I'm just afraid that the pace will finish her. He started to bend over to scoop her up, only to have Tamari stop him with an arm out. She smiled and set down her fan. I have a better idea. You lead, and I'll follow. I have enough chakra to fly for a bit. It should be a gentler journey. That just might work. Genma acknowledged the plan, and gently scooted the dying brunette onto the edge of the giant fan. After Tamari knelt over her, a cool wind picked up and the tool began to slowly rise into the air, bearing the two kunoichi. Let's move. Genma dashed through the cleared forest, courtesy of the wind, using sand nin, toward the town Tenten's last hope lay in. He moved as quickly as he could, occasionally glancing backward, relieved to see the flying Tamari was able to keep up with him. What a convenient ability. Genma. He glanced to the side to the small dog that called his name. He slowed his step only long enough to converse with the summoned messenger scout. I see you're already heading in that direction. The pug glanced upward toward the pair on the fan. Kakashi told me to inform you that the rendezvous is on the way to Tsunade. Tell him we won't have time to stop, Tenten is in critical. We'll meet after the town. Genma stated, resuming to his full speed. The dog nodded, and wheeled back around to search for Guy. Downing another cup of sake, Tsunade grumbled, having won nearly every game during the time she had allotted for slots. A rare winning streak like this usually foreshadowed a terrible happening. This foreboding occurrence had ruined all possible enjoyment. The knowledge that a dangerous shadow loomed over the two genin that had unceremoniously barged into her life had made her restless and unable to focus on her life of hedonism. If Jiraiya gets them killed, I'll kill him. She stretched out in the large chair of her hotel room, yawning like a cat while drowning out Shizune's continual chiding about their budget being in jeopardy despite her day's luck and winnings. A soft knock on the door had her furrowing her brow in frustration with her pounding headache. Enter. She felt a small weight lift from her shoulders seeing Genma. Good, they're back. Then an unfamiliar attractive blonde girl sporting a sand Hite 8 followed behind him, supporting a giant fan acting like a stretcher for another girl whom she recognized as Tenten. The clothes of the bun-haired girl were soaked with blood, the dark red liquid caked on top of the fan. She shivered, falling backward in the chair. Genma-san. Bring her over here. What happened? Where's Jiraiya-sama and the others? Shizune rapidly did seals and began to tend to the girl. She frowned and poured healing chakra into the gaping wound. Tsunade-sama. She is in critical condition. I will need your help with this. The brunette glanced toward the blonde Sanin and frowned. Tsunade swallowed and remembered the determination Naruto and Sakura still held despite losing everything. A little blood won't stop me today. She shakily approached the girl and winced seeing the wound, gathering her control and chakra to assist in closing the wounds. We had some inhuman opponents. Cursed seals, I'm guessing. Jiraiya-sama and the others should arrive soon. We hurried due to Tenten's condition. Will you be able to save her? We will do all we can. Tsunade affirmed, and the two medics went to work before their audience. She kept pace as well as she could, 3 out of 4 of her companions carrying a burden of one of her friends. One that will never awake again. Choji was so kind and caring. Sakura found the travel maddening, not knowing how Naruto was and seeing Ino's pained face and shallow breathing. I'm just not strong enough yet. And I'm worried about what Kakashi-sensei said. Her heart skipped a beat when Naruto began to stir against Kakashi's back, lazily opening his eyes. Words froze in her throat though, not knowing what to say, so they continued their journey in silence. The walls and buildings of the city were a welcome sight for the Haruno. She followed the older generation quietly, walking behind the large gourd of Gaara and the wrapped puppets of Kankuro next to an eerily quiet and defeated-looking Naruto. She frowned and squeezed his hand hoping to get some reaction or smile, but he simply glanced at her, nodding softly. His large eyes were now dull and lackluster instead of their normal shining crystal blue. Is he like this because of Choji and Ino? When they reached the large suite that Tsunade was living in, she noted that Genma's group was already present. She recognized Tamari sitting quietly to the side with her legs crossed, carefully studying them. Genma sat quietly next to Shizune and her master Tsunade lounged wearily in a high-backed chair. Sakura then noticed a tightly bandaged Tenten lying flat on her back on a bed. Sakura-san. Naruto-kun. The voice she recognized instantly, and she turned, spotting the young guy clone, still with a cast on his leg and arm, next to his sensei. Lee-san, you're alive. She frowned remembering his injuries from Gaara and carefully glanced at the red-haired Sand Nin. Lee flinched at seeing his last opponent and tightened his fingers. Gaara-san. We can have a reunion later. Jiraiya, who is injured the most? The stern voice of Tsunade cut short the greetings. The blonde here. This one, didn't make it. He gestured to Choji, setting his serene form carefully on the floor. The Leaf Shinobi bowed their heads sadly for a moment, while Ino was laid out on the other bed by a flatbed of sand. Tsunade pulled herself out of her chair and began to examine Ino. I'll take care of her. I'll be listening, so conduct your meeting. Jiraiya leaned against the closed door and nodded thoughtfully. Orochimaru has the Sharingan. Sakura froze at the words and caught Naruto wincing. Sasuke, he really is gone now. This makes him far more dangerous than you would believe. I think it was clear that he was using us to test his new eyes, and had he intended to, we may all be dead right now. Except, thanks to the Sand's intervention, and a third party's presence on the field. Kakashi stretched out his shoulders, and responded, a third party? Yes. I believe Akatsuki was monitoring the fight. They are an organization of S-class missing nins and their goals for now involve getting his eyes centered on Naruto and Gaara. Naruto's hand clenched at his stomach squeezing his jacket, while Gaara remained still, staring forward unblinkingly. There's very few of us, and possible others out there. We will be hunted and I think it'd be wise if we are not all in one spot and stay hidden for a while yet. The Junin began to nod at the statement and Sakura glanced warily at the quiet expressions. Then Gaara spoke up, the Sand Village will offer asylum for any of those that will seek it. We have much to atone for. Orochimaru killed and impersonated the late Kazekage and engineered our betrayal of Konoha without our knowledge. I will see to it that any Leaf Shinobi will be welcome within our village. Sakura frowned seeing the speculative looks of the others, mainly the adults. Kakashi answered in his usual lazy voice. That's a gracious offer, Gaara-san. But please don't be offended if we're skeptical of your offer. I think most citizens of Konoha would be hesitant at this point in time on how events have unfolded. I know your intentions are good, and you came to our aid, but our people are scattered and broken, and won't regain their trust so easily. Gaara nodded as if he expected the answer and remained quiet. Jiraiya continued his outlook on the situation. It may get worse with Orochimaru. I believe it is quite possible he knows how to attain the Mangekyo. I do not know the nature of his body technique, but from what I know of those cursed eyes is that the death of a best friend unlocks the true potential. Since it is Sasuke's body, that could mean Naruto, if I'm not mistaken. While if it is Orochimaru's, it may be one of his lieutenants, or perhaps myself or Tsunade. He sees us as a game, I think, and will not lessen on his attempts to hunt the leaf. Sakura processed the words. He'll be after Naruto. The Mangekyo, is that what Sasuke's brother had? Jiraiya sighed and leaned against a wall. I believe it best if we split into small 2 to 4 man cells. We hide our identities as Leaf Shinobi, and we'll devise a way to stay in contact with each other. I think given your status and intervention, Gaara, you can be included in on our plans, as you share 2 common enemies with us now. The addressed Nin nodded and waited for the Toad Hermit to continue. Now using some form of messenger would be too risky. We'd need some method of getting information out in an unexpected way that doesn't involve travel on our parts. The gathering remained silent for several minutes. A messenger bird system could backfire, plus it'd be best if we don't know where the others are, Sakura frowned. This only made things more difficult. Staying in contact with people you didn't even know where they'd be was not an easy thing. Naruto grumbled, slouching back. Nearly all of you are perverts, why not use that stupid book you write, Ero Sennin? Book. Her mind conjured an image of a giggling Kakashi over his orange book. Jiraiya-sama writes that, trash. The perverted Sannin slapped his thigh and stood upright. That's a genius idea, Naruto, perhaps you have potential yet. I can put a code in it and when new volumes are published, non-shinobi will circulate the copies and you can pick them up in nearly any town. Oi, Jiraiya, it's a good plan but, if I find you're using this as an excuse for peeking, Tsunade glared up from Ino's bedside, leaving the threat hanging in the air. I wouldn't dream of it, Tsunade Haim. He chuckled nervously, trying to shrink into the wall. Turning serious, he scanned the gathering. Now who here reads the book? Sakura was not surprised to see Kakashi pull out his copy, waving it in the air. This earned him a disapproving unyouthful tisk from Guy. She was surprised when Genma also raised a copy. Then she was completely floored when Gaara reached into his pocket. You write this? Perhaps you could sign my copy then. Sakura and Naruto's eyes twitched. Naruto is right, everyone here is a pervert, Shanaru. And I just learned more about Gaara than I ever wanted to know. The rest of the ninjas held smirks or similar stunned expressions at the revelation. Tsunade mumbled to herself. I think I remember another reason why I left Konoha. Sakura quietly listened for the remainder of the meeting. Genma had volunteered to take Tenten as a personal student on a long trip once she was able. The Sand Trio would be returning, and volunteered to host any emergency communication needed. Kakashi learned that his cute genin had found new masters in the Sannin and felt guilty about Ino and Choji's ill fate and thus desired to train and protect Ino after she recovered where he failed with his previous students. Guy had begged Tsunade to take a look at Lee, but the Sannin didn't believe she could help him at the moment, much to his disappointment. Night approached, and the gathering soon retired to their separate rooms. Sakura found herself alone with the brooding Naruto. The blonde had been relatively quiet since he left her with Kankuro and apparently had succumbed to the Kyuubi. Naruto, are you upset about Choji and Sasuke? He stared forward quietly. Part of it. I met my father Sakura-chan, she gasped. His father? He's an orphan. No. Weren't they fighting Orochimaru? He wasn't gone that long. I killed him. I don't remember what I was thinking. I just felt overwhelming anger and sadness and we fought. The Kyuubi, my father Sakura-chan. A single tear rolled down his cheek. Naruto, you should talk about it. I didn't know you knew who your parents were. How did you meet him? His fists clenched and she saw red flash in his cool blue eyes. Orochimaru, he summoned and controlled him, I don't know how. His coffin, the Yondaime Hokage, he called me son. He said he was sorry, and he let me kill him. He was sobbing with his face pressed into his hands. The Yondaime was his father. Of course, they look so alike, how did no one realize that? Orochimaru. She pulled him into a tight hug. Naruto, I'm so sorry. She searched her mind for comforting words. He was already dead. I'm sure he didn't want to fight you of all people. You have a great man as a father and you'd make him proud. It's okay to cry, Naruto. Tears spilled down her own eyes as she hiccuped into his shoulder, her face pressed into his neck. You still have people that need you though. People you want to protect, right? We'll get Orochimaru for this. He squeezed her tightly and she felt so warm. Thanks Sakura-chan, I needed to hear that. I just always wanted to know my parents. And now the only memory I have of him is fighting against him with that pained look on his face and, he sighed and backed away. Things are going to be different now too, Sasuke, he's gone, damn it. She nodded slowly sitting next to him. Ero Sennin thinks Akatsuki is going to come after me soon, and Orochimaru too. He said he is going to take me and train me more. We'll be hiding and searching for our other friends on the move. She shivered. She knew this was coming from the earlier conversation. I know, and Naruto, I want you to promise again that you'll come back to me. I'll be stronger when we meet again, and I'll never be a burden. He stood up and faced her. Naruto's eyes shone with purpose, studying her face intently. After a moment he gave her a solemn genuine smile reserved just for her. I promise Sakura-chan, nothing will stop me from returning. Not even death. It's the promise of a lifetime. Her heart leapt at his words, and she dived on top of him, casting her arms around his neck. The distance between them waned and before he knew what was happening, her lips tenderly claimed his, kissing him intensely. A moment later the stunned blonde came to his senses. His arms cradled her balanced across his lap, his hands softly stroking her pink tresses, while he closed his eyes and returned kiss. It was a clumsy show of affection, neither having much experience in the matter, but served well to release the burning tension that had formed between them since that fateful day. When she tore her lips off his, her emerald eyes met his and she draped her arms over his shoulders. His cheeks were tinged pink with a blush at her forwardness and closeness. He questioned in a cracking voice, "Saw Sakura-chan?" She put her finger to his lips, shushing him. "And this is our promise for the two of us. When you get back, we'll face the world together forever. Okay, Naruto." He smiled softly and pulled her close. The sparkle in his ocean blue eyes gave her all the answer she needed. Sakura gently rested her forehead to his and they sat quietly cuddling for the remainder of the night. Sakura squinted at the bright ray of morning light through the open window. Turning away from the annoyance, she grumbled, slowly rubbing the sleep out of her eyes before noticing she was neatly tucked into bed. Realizing that she fell asleep on top of Naruto, her heart sank and she searched about. Only the soft snores of Ino and light breathing of Tenten broke the morning silence. Spying a parchment on the small nightstand, Sakura cast for it and pulled the note close, reading it fervently. Sakura-chan. Ero Sennin said we had to move early in the morning. You looked so peaceful asleep, so I didn't want to wake you. Don't worry, I'll be back someday, it's my promise of a lifetime. I'll try to get Ero Sennin to allow me to send you some letters sometime. Uzumaki Naruto. Pulling the paper to her chest, she bit her lip fiercely. That idiot, he should have woken me to say bye. Shanaru. Inner Sakura growled in agreement. She stared forward for a long while until a wheezing cough and pained moan broke her out of her Naruto withdrawal regret. Sakura. Immediately brightening, she hopped off her bed to stand next to her blonde rival and friend. Ino, you're awake. You gave me such a scare. The wounded blonde tried to sit up, failing miserably with a loud whimper with both arms bound in tight casts. I'm glad to see you too, Sakura. What happened? Where the hell am I? Sakura frowned, and sat on the side of the bed. I didn't want to be the one to tell her. Ino, you won't be moving for a while. Your arms were broken and dislocated, and you have a few cracked ribs. And the crestfallen Ino interrupted her. Where's Choji and Kakashi and Gai senseis? Who was that guy? He said something about Sasuke-kun. Swallowing, Sakura stared forward. Let me finish. Ino, Kakashi and Gai senseis are fine. But this is hard to say. Choji passed away. She choked out, Ino wavering at the news. And Sasuke is gone too. He's the reason why all this happened. She clenched her fists tightly. Orochimaru is in Sasuke's body. That was his Sharingan. Tears started to form at the blonde's eyes as she stared blankly upward toward the ceiling. Is everyone gone, Sakura? Are we all who are left? Why did this happen? The rosette shook her head. Tenten is right here, although she's hurt. Lee-san is alive, but you knew that. And Naruto just left with Jiraiya-sama. He'll find some others, I just know it. She offered with more enthusiasm than she actually felt. Ino nodded slowly before breaking into sobs. The days were felt long and arduous, as Sakura toiled through her training, focused not to let the bleak world and absence of Naruto from halting her gaining of strength. The Sand siblings had disappeared the same day Naruto departed, while the other Junins loitered around the town while the girls recovered. Each of the other genin were also informed during this time of just why Akatsuki would be after Naruto, and his kinship with Gaara as a demon container. This was met with mixed reactions, confusion, disbelief, awe for the most part, with some underlying sympathy for the life he must have led. As the days passed, Tenten was the first of the Kunoichi to be hardy and on her feet due to the nature of her injury, and soon departed quietly with Genma. After a month of limited movement and depression, Ino had made a recovery. During the time she quietly observed and began to pick up the more basic medical techniques, not to the level of Sakura's natural ability, but enough to augment her arsenal of support jutsu. The blonde didn't know what to think about spending and training for extended amounts of time with the silver-haired Junin of chronic tardiness and hip mannerisms. However, she wasn't allowed to argue before she was dragged out of the town by Kakashi. When Lee had finally made a recovery, Sakura had a surge for pride for the diligence of her Sannin master. Tsunade had given him a choice and pored over several tomes, and with the suggestion of Kabuto's healing jutsu that Sakura bear witness to, the spandex-wearing taijutsu specialist would once again be in fighting form. The beautiful beasts of youth then left the Soul Medic unit of Konoha. 2 months later, Shizune shared fantastic news with Sakura while patching up the rosette after one of Tsunade's rougher conditioning sessions. Naruto had found a healthy Asuma and Shikamaru, which Jiraiya directed to report to the Sand Village to be under Gaara's protection and an added contact in the area should his Jinchuriki status be sought out by Akatsuki. After another several months, Sakura begun to finally appreciate the training despite the tortuous injuries she sustained. Her reflexes and natural combat instincts had increased exponentially, and by now she had perfected most of the basic healing ninjutsu. It was around this time when a party of 5-leaf nins composed of Hinata, Kiba, Kurenai, and 2 Chunin she recognized as some of the exam proctors arrived. She began to feel overwhelming relief that most of the ninja of her age group had survived the massacre thanks to their Junin senseis. After the new arrivals learned of the situation and the plan to remain scattered and silent, Kurenai and her two students departed in one direction while the pair of Chunin, Kotetsu and Izumo, left in another. When an additional year had passed, Sakura was nursing bruised knuckles while learning the knack for using her chakra control for heavy burst damage and powerful hits. Overjoyed that she could cause destruction near the level of Naruto's Rasengan without the preparation, she felt she could finally be of use to the blonde when he eventually returned to her. During this time, Tsunade had also moved their small party to that of another village, having expended her gambling business and desire to remain in the large city. As more time passed, Sakura grew restless worrying about Naruto. She began to eye the latest edition of short miniseries that Jiraiya had begun to release, which doubled as coded messages for the Leaf. Thus far, it was Shizune that subjugated herself to the perverted literature and kept their group informed of the happenings with Jiraiya and the world which he had scouted. Finally her patience snapped, and while no one was looking at night, Sakura fell victim to the wiles of the Toad Sage's writing under the excuse to hear from Naruto. At first, she didn't really know what to think of the writing, and disapproved at the content. Searching out for the code, she would just briefly glance through the small books. Finally, her curiosity got the best of her, and while she was quite naive to the material, Sakura soon found herself reading a few extra pages beyond the coded message. At least that's how it started. Soon the medic was reading the works with great enthusiasm in her spare time, and during training squirreled away the older volumes. She began to look forward to each new issue to not only hear fleeting news of Naruto, but to relieve the tension of her otherwise overly focused life. Life had become tedious for the Kyuubi vessel. He was forced to put up with Ero Sennin's constant perversion, distractions, and necessary writings, which he knew was his fault, curse his big mouth. The majority of his time was spent honing his Kage Bunshin technique, increasing both his already phenomenal endurance and chakra capacity and utilizing Sakura's suggestion to use the clones to practice techniques with a memory component. Soon enough, not only had his chakra control grown beyond its general abysmal level, thanks to the Kyuubi, had he begun to be able to perform one-handed Rasengans. The added benefit of his clone training had also made him faster, and his sporadic fighting style slowly became refined, his muscles and coordination adapting through constant use and the dodging his own attacks. However, his hope in improving his summoning technique had proved ineffective, and the result was binary: summon giant Gamabunta, or the growing Gamikichi and his brother. At the very least, he was thankful that his small frog companions were growing at an alarming rate. Summoning was never his style to begin with, but it had saved both his and more importantly Sakura's life in the past, and may do so again in the future. The next time he resorted to use it in a combat situation, he would be sure to get actual results. A year and a half into his expedition, they had finally tracked down Iruka's party, and he was happy to find his fatherly figure alive and well. While quietly avoiding the otherwise spastic Anko, Naruto learned from his old sensei that Konohamaru, Tsuki, Ayame, and several other students and villagers had escaped the explosion of the Hokage mountain, but have taken up new livelihoods in small villages. As non-ninja, these people blended into normal society without a second look, and while loyal to the Leaf, would prove a liability if brought anywhere near real shinobi while being hunted by the Sound. Jiraiya gave a special mission for Anko and Iruka, much to Naruto's dismay, having enjoyed intelligent and non-perverted conversation for a time. Toward the end of the second year, a battered figure stumbled into his camp. Unable to hide his surprise at the visitor, he rushed to greet a thin and haggard Neji. The Hyuga prodigy had escaped the fires and death with the sacrifice of his uncle and many other older Junin. While escaping, sorely tired and wounded from his loss with Naruto, he could do nothing but watch with his Bukagen as ninja legends such as the last of the Hyuga and Inoshika Cho trio, teams of Anbu and others sacrificed their lives in hopes of protecting their homes and families. Neji had dwelt in the wilderness, sparing only fleeting visits to towns, cursing his birthright. His pearly eyes caught much unwanted attention, and served only to notify possible enemies where they might find a Hyuga of Konoha. Naruto was dismayed at the hardship the genius had gone through, and with Jiraiya, the three traveled for some time. Neji could finally rest easy with friendly faces to watch his back, and health returned to his features after short weeks. Another year had passed in the company of the Hyuga, and they had grown quite friendly with each other after Naruto's secret was revealed. The stoic Neji gained a high respect for the blonde, and began adopting a sarcastic and cynical sense of humor. The two became avid sparring partners, and Naruto picked up many pointers in more subtle redirecting of punches and attacks, while Neji further explored the unique abilities granted to his clan through his bloodline. It was then they were reunited with Ebisu. At first the blonde for once was speechless, as it appeared the Junin specialist teacher was once again standing on two legs. The tall sunglass-wearing man smiled, and explained it was a special prosthetic which he could move as a replacement leg through the flow of chakra. It was by far inferior to any real leg, and he would never be able to run and jump past genin level, but it granted the restless leaf nin mobility, and the potential to still prove a worthy combatant through his ninjutsu. During this time, Jiraiya had insisted that Neji would accompany Ebisu, and scout an area of importance, which Naruto did not catch. Now, Naruto found himself heading back toward the fire country with Jiraiya, his mood bright at the prospect of seeing Sakura once again after their 3-year separation. The Leaf Shinobi were scattered in 2s and 3s, aware of Naruto's burden and preparing for the hardships of the future. The genins trained hard under the tutelage of their personal senseis, in hopes to provide being worthy adversaries to the likes of the Sound and quite possibly Akatsuki. Their survival was on the line, and the last issue of Ika Ika Holidays miniseries bade warning to the Leaf, sending directions to some. Akatsuki was on the move.